Of course. Hi guys. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey. A slow, winding journey into a time you've probably only brushed past in textbooks or watched through grainy documentaries. But here, in this story, we won't be watching from the outside. We'll be stepping into the dust and the sun and the uncertainty of the ancient world. This is the story of why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece. Not because you're weak or unworthy, but because the world was so utterly different. Unforgiving. Alien in the quietest ways. We'll explore that world, part by part, as though drifting through a dream. One where your feet ache, your throat dries, and nothing is quite what it seems. Let's begin gently, at the very edge of your arrival. You wake to the sound of silence. Not the peaceful silence of a quiet morning with your phone still asleep on the nightstand. This silence has weight. It presses against your ears with the hum of distant wind and the irregular chirp of something you can't name. There's no bed beneath you, just dry earth and stones that jab into the soft curve of your back. You blink slowly, the world swirling into focus. A low, golden light warms your face, the kind of light that exists only at dawn, the kind that falls across broken marble, wild grass and olive branches heavy with unharvested fruit. You sit up. Your body is sore, tight in places you don't recognize. Your modern skin, accustomed to soft chairs and filtered air, is already reacting to the grip, the heat, the scratch of woven wool against your shoulders. The tunic you wear hangs oddly, cinched with a rough cord around your waist, your knees bare to the wind. And that's when it hits you. You don't know where you are, you don't know what year it is. And worse, you know that wherever this is, it isn't your world. It's quiet, but not still. Somewhere down a slope you see a trail, narrow and uneven, worn into the earth by sandals and hooves. You rise slowly, your body hesitant, every movement feels new, uncertain, and yet you walk, because standing still feels like the more dangerous option. The path leads you through low-growing trees and bushes. You brush past thyme and lavender, and the scent clings to your skin like memory. The earth beneath your feet is packed, sun-hardened. No asphalt, no signs. Just the ancient logic of footpaths that follow need rather than maps. Eventually you see it. Not a city, at least not as you'd imagine one. More like a collection of forms. Simple stone homes clustered near one another, their walls made of mud brick and limestone. Some roofs are flat, others pitched and covered in terracotta tiles. Smoke curls from one or two of them, caught in the morning sun like ghostly fingers. The whole place feels like a secret, a painting held in silence. But there's life here. Chickens scratching in the dust, a tethered goat bleating, and then a woman, her head covered, carrying a clay jar balanced against her hip. You freeze. She sees you, and for a long moment nothing happens. Then, without a word, she turns and walks quickly in the other direction. Panic blooms in your chest. You don't know why. Maybe it's the sudden certainty that you're not supposed to be here. Not just unfamiliar, but truly out of place, like a forgotten word in a sacred prayer. You step forward, but your legs hesitate. You're aware now of your own body in the worst way, the length of your arms, the shape of your shadow, the rawness of your throat. And then more movement. A boy runs out from one of the homes, barefoot and fast, yelling something in Greek. You catch only the edges of meaning, tones, not words. But it's urgent. A name? A warning? He disappears behind a corner, and you realize that soon others will come. You don't wait. You turn and walk away from the village, calmly at first, then with increasing purpose. You don't know what they'll do if they catch you, but your instinct whispers that it won't be curiosity. Not here, not now. Back up the path, the air feels heavier. Not hot, but thick with history. The trees whisper again, and the sky deepens into a blue so clean it aches. You walk for hours, or maybe minutes. Time doesn't behave here as you expect it to. The shadows stretch. Your stomach gnaws at itself. There are no signs, no direction. Eventually you reach the edge of a ridge. Below it sprawls a larger settlement with walls low, ancient and curved with the land. You recognize the architecture in a distant way, like something seen through glass. Columns, temples, open courtyards. You're not just in a Greek village. You're on the edge of a city-state. A polis. Athens, Corinth, Thebes. You don't know. You couldn't know. The names you've memorized are all so modern. These cities lived and breathed in a time when the world was made of stories, and stories were made of survival. And still you walk. Closer. The road now is clearer, pressed hard by many feet. A donkey pulls a cart ahead, guided by a hunched man humming something low and old. He doesn't look at you, but he sees you. He knows you're not one of them. Past a grove of cypress, a gate stands open, not the kind with metal bars or security cameras, but simple wooden guards in leather and bronze. Their spears glint in the sun, their eyes sweep you over like a tide. You nod, lower your gaze, try to pass without notice. But again it happens. You stand out, your face, your bearing, the way you walk as if the world should make room for you. One of the guards steps forward. His beard is trimmed, his eyes sharp. He speaks, slowly, carefully, but it still means nothing to you. You respond with the only Greek you know, maybe something you remember from school or a film or a museum placard. It's not enough. He frowns, gestures, and you are taken, not roughly, not cruelly, but with certainty. They lead you toward a stone building, cool inside, darker, a magistrate, a clerk, a priest. You can't tell. The room smells of parchment and oil. Your name is asked. You can't answer. Your purpose here is questioned. You can't explain. A few coins are taken from your pocket. Your jeans, if you had them, are long gone. But somehow your modernity lingers on your fingertips, in the cut of your nails, the shape of your jaw. They examine you, not like a prisoner, but like a relic, a puzzle. And that's somehow worse. You sit in the corner of the room as voices rise and fall around you, echoing off the stone. You feel small, diminished, a curiosity with no place. You wish someone would tell you what's happening, where you are, what they want. But no one explains. Because in this world, explanation is earned. And you? You are no one. You're not even supposed to be here. The room grows colder, not because the air changes, but because the silence begins to weigh differently. You sit on a small stone ledge, your back against the rough wall. It's not meant for sitting. Nothing here seems designed with comfort in mind. The bench is a convenience for the building, not for you, and you can feel it pressing into your spine, one stubborn stone at a time. Voices echo faintly beyond the doorway. Men's voices, low, resonant, purposeful. Every so often, one of them laughs. But it's not a kind laugh, it's short and sharp, almost like punctuation. It's followed by a scrape of sandals on stone. The air carries the scent of oil and something metallic. Maybe bronze, maybe blood. You can't be sure. The room has no windows, only a single opening near the ceiling lets in a slice of afternoon sun. You breathe slowly, deliberately, because if you let panic in even for a second, it might take over. You're alone, but not forgotten. They haven't locked you up, they haven't shackled you, but they've also made it clear, this isn't freedom. You are being watched, and whatever decision is being made about you is not one you're part of. Eventually, the door shifts. It doesn't creak. It sighs like it's used to being moved slowly. A figure steps in, older, robed, with a beard that falls like a curtain over his chest. He smells of herbs and something smoky. His face doesn't carry anger or warmth. Just the blank patience of a man who deals with many questions and doesn't often expect answers. He speaks to you. You try to follow. The cadence is rich, the syllables heavy. It's Greek, but it's a kind of Greek that doesn't exist anymore. Somewhere between poetry and prayer. You shake your head, you lift your hands, palms up, the universal gesture of confusion. He watches you a moment longer. Then he steps forward and does something unexpected. He sits beside you. There is a moment of stillness. He says a word slowly, points to his own chest. Anthropos. Then points to you, repeats it. Anthropos. You nod, slowly. Human. His face shifts almost into something like amusement. Then he reaches into his robe and pulls out a small wooden tablet, coated in wax, a stylus in his other hand. He offers it to you. You take it. The wax is soft from the heat. You press the stylus in carefully and write, one letter at a time, English. He reads it, blinks. He's never seen these letters, not once. Not carved on walls or written on papyrus, not spoken by sailors or traders. You've just confirmed, without meaning to, that you are not from any known land. Not Phoenician, not Egyptian, not Persian, not Scythian, something else. And that perhaps is worse than being no one. Because now, you are something new. The man takes the tablet gently from your hands, examines the letters again, then tucks it into his robe. He rises and speaks to someone just outside the doorway. Moments later, two young boys enter. Slaves, by the looks of them. One carries a pitcher of water and a shallow clay bowl. The other places a bundle of figs and flat bread on a chipped plate. They leave as quickly as they came, their eyes never meeting yours. You eat with trembling hands. The figs are sweet but strange, sun-soaked and soft, their centres like honeyed pulp. The bread is rough, thick with grains and the faint scent of ashes. The water is lukewarm but clear. You sip it like it's sacred. For the first time since you arrived, you feel less hollow, but only just. Outside, the sun continues its arc. You hear more voices now, children laughing, wheels turning over stone, the distant clatter of hammers against bronze. Life unfolds without you. And that is the part that unsettles you most. You realize how easily the world here moves forward, with or without you. You are not the center. You are not even a participant. You are a ripple in a river, and rivers here do not stop for ripples. Eventually, the old man returns. He motions for you to stand. You do. He leads you from the room through a hallway where men lounge and argue, scratching their beards, flinging gestures into the thick air. You are led into an open space, a courtyard perhaps. The stone beneath your feet has been worn smooth by centuries of steps. Pigeons coo from above. A tree stands in the centre, ancient and gnarled, its leaves twitching in the breeze like green fire. Around the perimeter, men stand in small groups. Philosophers, perhaps, scribes. Some look like merchants, others like priests. Their robes vary, some draped in fine white, others dusty and patched. They all turn to watch you pass. Your presence here is more than unusual. It's a question that hasn't been answered. A puzzle with no myth to explain it. The old man brings you to a low wall and gestures for you to sit again. Then he speaks, slowly, carefully. He uses gestures, sketches words into the dust with the toe of his sandal. You follow as best you can. From what you understand, they believe you may be a metic, a foreigner who's come to the city for reasons unknown. But the problem is, you have no patron, no citizen who speaks on your behalf, no family, no proof of tribute. You are not a slave, but you are not a citizen either. You live in a space between, and that space is dangerous. The law here is precise. Metics are tolerated, but they are expected to contribute, to work, to pay, to obey. You can't just be here. You must be something, do something, belong somewhere, and yet you belong nowhere. A few men approach. One speaks, eyes narrowing as he examines your tunic. It's not their cloth, not their weave. They argue among themselves, softly but with intensity. The old man raises a hand and they quiet. He speaks again, points to the horizon, then to the sky, then to you. One word rings out from his mouth, crisp as a stone dropped into still water. Zeus. You shake your head, but they don't believe you. They are deciding whether you are divine or mad. And here in this land of myth and omen, those are the same thing. You want to cry out, to scream your identity into their faces, to tell them about electricity, about planes, about the internet, about shoes with rubber soles. But you say nothing, because you can't. Because even if you could speak the words, there are no ears here prepared to hear them. And so you sit, as the sun begins its descent behind the hills, casting long shadows across the courtyard. And once again, you are no one. But this time, they are beginning to suspect that you might be something else. The courtyard grows quieter as the light softens, shadows lengthening along the flagstones like ink spilled slowly across parchment. The voices that once filled the air with debate and decision now taper into murmurs, as though the approach of dusk reminds even the most rational minds that there are questions better left unanswered until morning. You sit still, your hands resting limply on your knees, fingers curled with the tension you refuse to show. The men who gathered around you earlier have begun to drift away, pulled back to the rhythms of the city. But a few remain, lingering with sideward glances, whispering to one another in tones that fall just below comprehension. One of them, a lean figure with skin weathered by sun and time, takes a deliberate step toward you. His eyes, though clouded by age, shine with a glint of something that feels like interest or suspicion. He carries a staff that clicks against the stone with each step, not out of need, but as a statement, a rhythm of presence. He stops just before you, peering down, and says a word. You don't understand it. He repeats it. Still, nothing. Then, with a sigh, he reaches into a pouch at his waist and pulls free a small, brittle scroll. The edges are frayed, the parchment curling like dried leaves. He opens it with a reverence that suggests it is precious. On it, you see symbols, lines, curves, dots. Some are faintly familiar, cousins of letters you once memorized for tests you've long forgotten. He lays the scroll on a flat stone beside you and points at one of the symbols. He speaks the sound aloud, then another, and another. Slowly, deliberately, he begins to teach you the language. Not Greek as you know it, filtered through modern mouths and softened by centuries, but Greek as it once was. Fierce, sharp, spoken like breath drawn through fire. You listen, and for the first time you feel a thread stretch between you and this place. Thin, fragile, but real. He gestures for you to try. You fumble the sounds. Your mouth, accustomed to softer consonants and clipped vowels, refuses the shapes. The old man doesn't scold. He simply waits. He knows that time moves differently here. You spend what feels like hours beneath that tree, surrounded by the smells of dusk, olive smoke, warm dust, and the faint sweetness of grapes left too long on the vine. You repeat syllables. You draw shapes in the dust. You begin to imitate, not understand, not yet, but mimic the rhythm of this world's words. When you finally stop, your voice is hoarse. He nods. It's neither approval nor praise, just acknowledgement. Then, without a word, he turns and walks away. You sit in the silence that follows, the scroll still beside you. You trace the symbols one more time, your fingers dusty, your thoughts scattered. You wonder what name he gave you in his mind. The strange one? The lost one? Or perhaps the cursed one? As twilight wraps the courtyard in its indigo shawl, another figure appears. This one is younger, a boy, perhaps 15. His tunic is cleaner, shorter, the edge dyed in faded red. He carries a shallow bowl and a folded cloth. His expression is neutral, like someone performing a chore they neither resent nor enjoy. He approaches you and sets the bowl beside the scroll. It's a mixture, grainy with herbs floating in a thin broth. The scent is unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. He places the cloth beside it, gestures toward the food, then toward his own mouth. Eat. You nod, mumble something in return, your voice brittle from misuse. He doesn't stay to listen. He walks away, disappearing into the shadows between columns. You eat slowly. The broth is simple, barley and lentils perhaps, rosemary, maybe thyme, but it warms you, anchors you. In the absence of electric light, the world begins to sleep early. You feel it in the air, the way conversations lower, the footsteps soften. Somewhere nearby a lyre is plucked gently, the notes rising like questions into the night. You strain to hear the melody, but the distance steals its shape. Only the emotion remains, something plaintive, searching. You lie back on the stone bench. It isn't a bed, it doesn't pretend to be. But it supports you. And after the weight of today, of every breath, every misstep, every unspoken word, it feels like rest. You watch the sky through the opening above. It's overwhelming in its vastness. No glow of cities, no satellites blinking past. Just stars. Real stars. Endless, bright, unashamed. The constellations above you are ancient, older than this world you've fallen into. You try to name them, but your words fail. You've never seen them like this. Not with this clarity, this stillness. It feels like being inside a painting you never deserved to see. Somewhere beneath those stars, someone is deciding what to do with you, and you don't even know their name. Eventually, sleep comes, not gently, but like a wave, heavy and absolute. When you wake, the sky is pale again, streaked with soft pinks and yellows. The world smells of dew and charcoal. You sit up slowly. Your body aches in new places. You are still in the courtyard. The scroll is gone. The bowl too. But someone has left a tunic folded beside you. Rough brown, unadorned. Slightly cleaner than the one you wear. You take it, grateful. A bell rings in the distance. Not a church bell. There are no churches here yet. This bell is thinner, higher. A signal. You stand unsure whether to follow it, but the sound stirs movement around you. Doors open. Men step out. Slaves gather jugs and baskets. A procession of people begins to form. You watch them, trying to understand. They are headed toward the agora. The old man with the scroll appears once more. He doesn't speak. He merely lifts a hand, gestures for you to follow. And you do. Not because you trust him, but because in a world where everything is foreign, the only direction worth taking is forward. The streets are alive before the sun has fully climbed the sky. You follow behind the old man in silence, your feet brushing against the morning dust that clings to the hem of your tunic. Around you, the city begins to stir, not with haste, but with purpose. There is no honking, no screens flashing in windows, only the soft cadence of sandals on stone, murmurs of early conversation, and the creak of wooden carts being pulled into place. The path wends downward, revealing more of the city with each turn. Buildings stand closely together, their walls rising in pale tones of clay and limestone. Some are marked with crude paint, symbols or words you cannot yet decipher. Wooden beams jut out at odd angles, ladders lean precariously, smoke curls from vents in rooftops, and water spills from gutters carved like lion mouths. Chickens strut confidently across alleys as if they own them. Children with shaved heads and dusty feet chase one another around pots left to dry in the sun. This is no reconstruction. It is not a reenactment or a cleaned-up museum installation. It is life. Messy, fragrant, flawed life. The old man walks slowly, his staff clicking rhythmically with each step. He does not look back at you, nor does he speak, but there's an unspoken expectation in the way he moves, that you will keep up, that you will observe, learn. And you do. Because you must. As you draw closer to the agora, the heart of the city, the energy thickens. More people now. Men in pairs, debating with hands as much as with voices. Older women wrapped in himatians, their faces lined with sun and labour. A group of younger men pass by, laughing loudly, their hair oiled, eyes sharp. One of them notices you. His laughter pauses. He nudges another, and their eyes linger on your face just a beat too long. You lower your gaze. You feel it again, that hum of suspicion, the invisible pressure of not belonging. You try to match your pace, your posture to those around you. But you know, deep down, that even your silence sounds foreign here. The agora unfolds before you like a sunlit theatre. It is not simply a market, it is the city's lungs. Stalls line the open square, shaded by canopies of woven reeds. Merchants shout over one another, each voice a song of persuasion. Bronze gleams in the sun, tools, jewellery, mirrors. Amphorae stacked in rows hold oil, wine, grain. Fish laid over crushed herbs glisten in the heat. The scent is both alluring and repelling, ancient and familiar. You see a man weighing cheese with a scale made of wood and string. Another cuts olives into a bowl, his fingers stained purple. Two women argue loudly over the price of saffron, their gestures wide, dramatic. No one seems in a hurry. Time here is measured in conversation, not clocks. But it is not only goods being traded. Ideas fill the air like smoke. At the edge of the market, near a low stone wall, a group of men have gathered around a speaker. He is tall, with sun-darkened skin and a robe that clings to his thin frame. He speaks without notes, without hesitation. His voice is neither angry nor soft. It is clear, confident, as though it were the most natural thing in the world to bend the crowd's attention with nothing but air. You cannot understand the words, but you understand the weight. Heads nod. Others challenge. One man steps forward, interrupts, and the crowd shifts toward him. The two voices clash, not violently, but like instruments testing one another. Logic against logic, rhetoric against emotion. No fists, no shouting, just the sport of speech, sacred in its own right. You realize with a kind of quiet awe that this is where democracy breathes. Not in laws carved in marble, but in moments like this, gathered under open sky between fig vendors and sandal sellers, where thought is not just permitted, but demanded. And yet you know you could never speak here. Not with your language. Not with your mouth shaped by different syllables. Even if you learned every word, every conjugation, you would still carry an accent of time. An inflection no tutor could polish away. You would always be too modern, too far removed. You would not survive a debate. You would be dismissed. Not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. You are a traveller from a future that doesn't yet exist, and that future has no voice here. The old man stops near a pillar, where a bowl of water rests on a plinth. He dips his fingers in, touches his forehead, then gestures to you. You mimic him, uncertain of its meaning. Purification? Ritual? A sign of respect? You don't know, but you do it anyway. Nearby, another man approaches the old one. They greet each other with a nod and a clasp of forearms. They speak quickly, occasionally glancing at you. Their conversation feels less curious now, more serious, intentional. Then, without warning, the new man steps toward you. He is broad-shouldered, with hair tightly curled and a scar across his cheek. His eyes are piercing, like cold iron. He asks a question. You don't understand it. He repeats it more slowly, gesturing as he speaks. You piece together fragments. The words are strange, but the rhythm is familiar. He is asking who you belong to. Not what your name is, not where you are from, but to whom you belong. Because here, in this moment, you are not assumed to be free. Not until someone claims you. You freeze. The old man says something quickly, firmly. The other man frowns but backs away, nodding with reluctant acceptance. Your breath catches in your throat. You realize how thin the line is. How easily a misinterpreted silence could become servitude. You are not a citizen. You are not a metic. You are not a name. You are a body, and bodies can be owned. The old man begins walking again, this time toward a smaller building just off the square. Not a temple, not a market stall, a house of learning perhaps, or records. Its door is low, wooden, reinforced with bronze studs. As you step inside, the coolness wraps around you like a quiet mercy. There are scrolls here, shelves of them, and a young man seated at a table, his head bent over parchment, his fingers stained with ink. The old man gestures for you to sit. You do. He points to the scroll, then to you, then to the table, and slowly, wordlessly, it begins again. Symbols, sounds, script and repetition. The building hums with silence, broken only by the scratch of stylus on parchment and the murmurs of a forgotten tongue finding shape in your throat. Your second day in this world passes not in struggle but in study, and for now, that is enough. The room smells faintly of olive oil and parchment. You sit hunched over a worn table, your fingers cramped around a wooden stylus. The wax tablet before you is etched with faint scratches, symbols from another world. This world, layered atop each other like archaeological echoes. The air is still, heavy with expectation. The young scribe beside you watches without speaking, his gaze sharp beneath a fringe of curling black hair. Every so often, he dips his own stylus into an inkwell, then continues writing in long, looping lines on his scroll. Your progress is slow. Every letter is a small war between your memory and your hand. The alphabet is both alien and oddly familiar, like a melody played backward. You repeat each syllable under your breath, trying to bend your voice around vowels that seem to sit differently in your throat. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. You trace them again. Over and over, not just to learn them, but to inhabit them, to wear them until they become yours. Outside, the noise of the agora continues, a dull roar, distant but constant. The life of the city pulses through the thick stone walls, but in here the world is narrowed to lines and syllables. You wonder if you've been brought here to be taught or contained. Both, perhaps. To them, you are an anomaly worth watching, maybe even worth preserving. A rare animal caught in their net of time. At midday, the young scribe stands and leaves the room without a word. You sit alone in the quiet, your head bowed low. Fatigue settles behind your eyes. The language comes, but it comes slowly and it demands a toll. Your memories of your own world feel farther now. The rhythms of traffic, the buzz of lights, the unthinking comfort of modernity, muted, distant, almost imagined. You rest your head against your folded arms, and somewhere in that warmth and stillness, you drift. It's not sleep, not truly, more like a falling inward. Your mind wanders, carried by the soft echo of things half remembered. You see yourself as you were, sitting in a classroom, bored, a textbook open to a chapter on classical antiquity. You see the words, the diagrams, the sanitized summaries of centuries. None of them told you how the air here would feel, how the language would taste in your mouth, how your body would ache from stone and sun. You're awoken by a sudden sound, footsteps. The old man is back. He enters with purpose, speaking quickly to the young scribe who returned ahead of him. Their exchange is brief. Then the old man turns to you and gestures, "Follow." You rise without question. The streets are brighter now, the sun riding high above the red-tiled roofs. The people seem louder, more awake, the smells sharper, roasting fish, charred bread, human sweat. You move through the crowd like a thread pulled through fabric. Faces turn to look, some openly, others discreetly. The robe you wear is too plain for a citizen, too clean for a labourer. You are a question in human form. Eventually, the old man brings you to a different part of the city. Here, the streets narrow. The buildings are taller, packed tightly together, casting long shadows that offer rare relief from the sun. Laundry hangs from windows, fluttering in the breeze. Children dart past, laughing, barefoot and quick. You pass a woman grinding grain with a heavy stone, her shoulders strong and darkened by years of labour. She doesn't look up. This is a poorer quarter. You can feel it in the silence. The dignity here is quieter, earned through work, not wealth. The old man stops before a modest dwelling. The door is made of planks bound by rope. He knocks once, twice, then enters without waiting for an answer. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of herbs and oil. A woman sits beside a low hearth, stirring a pot of something fragrant. When she sees you, her expression tightens, not with fear, but with calculation. She looks at the old man, says a few words. Then she stands. She's older than you first thought. Her hands are calloused, her eyes lined deep. She nods once, then disappears into a back room. The old man sits, motioning for you to do the same. You obey, sitting cross-legged on a woven mat. The floor is packed earth, swept clean. The walls are bare, save for a single clay lamp and a basket of dried figs hanging from a hook. The woman returns with a folded bundle, cloth dyed faintly with blue. She places it in front of you, then steps back. Clothes. New clothes. The old man speaks a few words, then leaves. You're alone with her now. She doesn't speak to you, not directly. She moves around the room, pouring water into a basin, setting out a flat piece of bread. Then she looks at you expectantly. You understand, you change. The new tunic is rougher, more worn. The blue dye marks you, not as citizen, but as someone under protection, a kind of temporary status, a borrowed place in the world. She watches as you adjust the fabric, then grunts softly and nods. You sit again, and she serves you the bread. It's warm, dense. You chew slowly. For a moment she joins you. No conversation, only the shared rhythm of eating. It's oddly comforting. Later, she brings a rolled mat and places it near the wall. She pats it once, then points to you. You are to sleep here now. This will be your place for however long they decide you are allowed to stay. As the sun lowers outside, spilling orange light across the narrow window, you lie down on the mat. It smells faintly of ash and thyme. You pull the spare cloth over yourself, the weight unfamiliar but grounding. In this world, safety is never promised. But tonight, you are sheltered. Not welcomed, not yet, but allowed. You close your eyes, the day's sounds still echoing in your head, the clatter of pots, the voice of the old man teaching, the boy's measured silence, the sizzle of oil on the hearth, and beneath it all, the deep, slow hum of a civilization pulsing around you, vast and indifferent. You sleep, not because you are at peace, but because there is nothing else to do. You wake before the sun. The room is dark, but not silent. There's the faint rustle of woven reeds shifting in the morning breeze, the dry creak of the wood above your head, and the distant murmur of someone sweeping outside. A broom of twigs dragging across stone. The air is cooler than before, soft, almost forgiving, and for a moment it feels like dawn anywhere. Not ancient, not foreign, just quiet. Then you sit up, and the illusion dissolves. Your body aches from sleeping on the thin mat, a dull stiffness in your hips, a tightness across your shoulders. You stretch slowly, your arms brushing against the rough plaster wall. The blue tunic itches slightly against your skin. You wonder who wore it before you. If it once belonged to someone long gone, someone who walked these streets in sandals made of rope and leather, someone who whispered to the gods at sunset. The woman is already awake. She doesn't speak. She never does. Her presence is wordless but full, like the weight of a mountain that never moves but always watches. She hands you a shallow bowl of water and a piece of cloth, then turns away. You clean yourself in silence, dabbing away sweat and dust, careful not to spill. Today, there is no sign of the old man. Instead, the boy from the day before appears at the door just as the first streak of light touches the floor. He carries a bundle over one shoulder, a small clay pot tied with rope in the other. He glances at you, then gestures toward the street. There's no hesitation in him. He expects to be followed. And so you do. You step out into the narrow alley, your feet finding balance on uneven stones. The light is still soft, painting the walls in golden grey. The city hasn't fully woken yet, but it's stirring, windows creaking open, voices murmuring low, the first trails of smoke beginning to rise. You follow the boy through a series of twisting paths. He walks quickly, never looking back. You pass a man sharpening a blade against stone, a group of girls weaving baskets in the dust, an older woman sprinkling ashes over her doorstep. They all see you. None speak. But their eyes speak enough. You are still a stranger here. Still a question. Eventually, the boy stops in front of a larger house. It's unlike the others, wider, with a small courtyard shaded by a grapevine. Vines twist around wooden beams, their leaves already quivering in the breeze. A man is waiting at the doorway. He's broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and the calm demeanor of someone used to giving orders. His tunic is finely woven, the edge trimmed with a pattern of red and black. He doesn't smile. He simply nods at the boy, then at you, and turns. Inside, the house is cooler. The floor is covered in straw mats and the walls are lined with shelves of tools, clay pots and lengths of cloth. This is no simple dwelling. It's a workshop. You've been brought here to work. The man leads you to a table near the open window. Laid out are pieces of leather, thread made from animal sinew, small bronze awls, and a pair of sandals mid-construction. He gestures, demonstrates, shows you how to punch the holes, how to fold the leather, how to pull the cord tight without tearing it. He doesn't ask if you've done this before, because it doesn't matter. In this world, you do what you are shown, or you don't eat. You take a breath and begin. The tools are unfamiliar, but your hands adjust, slowly, painfully. The leather is tougher than you expected. The awl slips once and your palm is nicked. Blood beads instantly, but the man only raises an eyebrow and hands you a rag. No pity, no scolding. The hours pass. Your back begins to hurt. Your fingers grow stiff. The smell of leather and sweat clings to your skin. Occasionally, the man inspects your work. He corrects you not with words, but with gestures, tapping, pointing, reshaping. When you finish your first sandal, it's clumsy, uneven, but it holds. He nods. You've passed an invisible test. At midday, you're handed a chunk of bread and a wedge of goat cheese. You eat in the shade of the courtyard, watching the vines shift above you. The boy eats across from you, quiet, expressionless. He drinks from a shared cup and passes it to you without ceremony. The water is cool, tastes faintly of clay. After the meal, the man leads you to another part of the workshop. Here he shows you a different task, polishing a strip of bronze. He drags a cloth over the metal again and again until it shines like the sun's reflection on water. You try to do the same. Your rhythm is off at first, the metal streaks, but you learn, because that's all you can do. By late afternoon, your arms feel like lead. Your hands are red and sore. But something strange happens as you sit by the window, cloth in hand, the bronze beginning to gleam. You stop thinking of yourself as misplaced. For a brief moment, the ache in your shoulders and the sweat on your brow feel normal, earned. You are not learning history here. You are surviving it. You are part of the fabric now, frayed, imperfect, but stitched into the day. When the man finally waves you off, it's without fanfare. You follow the boy back through the alleys, your body dragging but upright. The city is louder now. The sun has dipped lower, shadows lengthening again. Musicians sit along the main road, playing flutes and lyres. Children race in circles. The smell of roasted meat drifts through the air. You reach the house just as the first stars blink into the sky. The woman is waiting. She sees your hands, red raw, and says nothing. Instead, she gives you a small bowl of oil. You rub it into your skin slowly, the sting easing into warmth. She places a folded cloth beside your mat. A reward, maybe, or simply mercy. That night, as you lie down, your body heavier than before, you think not about home, but about tomorrow. You know what it will bring. Work, silence, watching eyes, and perhaps another step toward understanding this world that does not want you, but will eventually learn to tolerate you, or forget you. You close your eyes, and this time, sleep does not feel like escape. It feels like part of the rhythm. The next morning arrives, wrapped in a softness that almost deceives you. Birdsong, faint and scattered, hums somewhere just beyond the walls. The air carries a quiet chill, the kind that disappears the moment the sun climbs. You wake slowly, your body heavy with the echo of labor. The blue tunic, now creased and damp with yesterday's sweat, clings to your skin as you sit up. Your hands throb faintly. The bruises in your muscles are still new, still tender, like unfamiliar shoes breaking in the soles of your feet. You hear movement before you see it. The woman, already awake, already working, moves through the shadows near the hearth, crushing something in a small stone bowl. Her presence remains unspoken but certain. You've stopped expecting her to greet you. Her language is efficiency. She slides a bowl toward you across the floor. Bread, a few olives, a smear of something tangy on a clay shard that passes for a plate. You eat without asking. There are no choices here, only offerings. When the boy arrives, he's earlier than yesterday. Today there's no bundle over his shoulder, no clay pot, just the steady rhythm of his feet on the stone and the quick glance he throws toward the mat where you've slept. He says nothing, but his body already angles toward the door, waiting for you to follow. And so you do. The streets are quieter this time. The city hasn't yet taken its full breath. Only the merchants stir now, sweeping dust from thresholds, arranging amphorae, shooing away curious dogs. A goat tugs at a frayed rope, bleating once before returning to silence. The scent of freshly baked barley bread floats through the air, warm and nutty. You catch fragments of speech, half-formed, musical. The language is beginning to take root in your ear, not as comprehension, but as pattern. The workshop is just as you left it, but the man is not alone today. A second figure stands by the table, a younger man, wiry and sharp-featured, with hands that move like birds. He eyes you as you step inside, and though his lips don't smile, something flickers behind his gaze. Not friendliness, not yet, but something lighter than suspicion. The older man mutters something to him and gestures toward a pile of half-finished sandals. Today, you will not be polishing. Today, you will be crafting. Your heart stutters. You sit beside the new man. He doesn't introduce himself. He simply begins. He shows you how to measure the leather, how to cut clean lines using a blade that has seen 100 hands before yours. He moves with the precision of someone who has done this so many times. The motions have left grooves in his bones. Every time you mimic him, he corrects you, wordlessly, quickly. A tap here, a tug there. He doesn't wait for you to get it wrong. He prevents it before it happens. You work in silence, save for the scrape of blades, the tension of thread pulled taut, the occasional grunt of approval or disapproval. It becomes a kind of music, the rhythm of labor, one that drowns out thought and forces your body to become your language. The hours pass unnoticed. At midday, the younger man breaks the silence. A single word. He points to the door. It's time for the meal. You eat in the courtyard again, but this time he joins you. He sits a few feet away, his knees drawn up, a piece of cheese in one hand. He speaks softly, slowly. His voice is rough but not unkind. You don't understand everything, but you catch the meaning. His name is Dorian. He is from a coastal town, but he has worked here since he was a boy. The old man is not his father, but close enough. He asks you a question. You hesitate, then respond with the few words you know. You give your name. He repeats it, frowning. The syllables feel strange in his mouth. He tries again, closer, then shrugs and settles for a shorter version, one that fits their world. You don't mind. You've already begun to forget how your own voice once sounded. That afternoon he teaches you something new. Not sandals this time. A small pouch. He explains the folds, the stitches, the logic of weight and tension. His instructions are clearer now, his words slower. You start to understand pieces, the roots of nouns, the shape of verbs. You're learning, not just how to make things, but how to be something here. Later, as the light grows dimmer and the shadows stretch longer, the old man returns. He inspects your work, the lines of stitching, the cut of the leather. He doesn't speak, but he nods once. That nod is the only approval you'll get. It's enough. When you leave the workshop, the boy isn't waiting. Instead, Dorian offers to walk with you. It's the first time anyone has chosen to. The streets are more crowded now. The marketplace roars with voices. Drums beat somewhere far off. You pass a group of women dancing in a circle, their hands linked, their feet kicking up dust. An old man sings a ballad into the wind, and the tune, though wordless to you, burrows deep into your chest. You glance at Dorian. He is watching the dancers, but his face remains unreadable. Festival, he says simply. You nod, not because you understand, but because the word feels like a gift. As you turn down a narrower alley, Dorian stops. He points to a small shrine nestled in the wall, a crude carving of a god's face, eyes closed, lips curled in a half-smile. Below it, offerings have been left. Figs, coins, a feather, a small piece of gold thread. He murmurs a few words, touches the stone gently with 2 fingers, then turns away. You watch him. You wonder what prayers belong here, what fears they're meant to silence. When you return to the house, the woman is already lighting the small clay lamp. She looks at you, then at Dorian, and for the first time her expression changes. A flicker of something, surprise, approval, or maybe she just didn't expect you to come back with anyone at all. Dorian says a word to her. She replies in a voice that sounds like gravel on clay. Then he nods to you once and slips back into the twilight. You sit on your mat. Your hands ache again, but differently this time. Not from unfamiliarity, but from repetition. You breathe in. The oil lamp flickers. And for the briefest of moments, you feel less like an outsider, and more like something beginning. Night comes, and with it, the sounds of a city turning inward. The shouts of merchants fade into low murmurs. Doors are barred, not with locks, but with wooden beams. Lamps glow dimly through small windows, their flickering light too soft to reach the streets. Smoke curls into the sky in lazy plumes, carrying with it the scent of cooked barley, bitter herbs, and burning resin. Somewhere beyond the houses, the rhythmic clack of dice against pottery echoes briefly, followed by laughter, then silence. You lie on your mat staring at the ceiling. The oil lamp beside you wavers, its flame fighting against a draft that slips through the wall cracks. The woman has gone to sleep. You hear her steady breath beyond the thin curtain that separates her room from the rest of the house. Outside, a dog barks once, sharply before being shushed by a voice too far away to understand. Sleep hovers just out of reach. Your body is exhausted, but your mind, sharpened by the weight of learning and strangeness, turns restlessly. You replay Dorian's instructions from earlier, his hands guiding the leather, his mouth shaping words that are beginning to mean something. You trace the syllables silently with your tongue, committing them to memory not through translation, but through sound and sensation. You're not thinking in your native language as often anymore, and that frightens you just a little. You wonder how long it takes for a mind to forget where it came from. Sometime before dawn, you drift into sleep, a heavy, dreamless thing. When you wake, the house is already stirring. The woman is sweeping. She pauses only to hand you a bowl of water and a strip of bread. You eat quickly, automatically. Your hands remember the shape of the sandals you made yesterday. Your feet ache. Your shoulders are stiff. You barely register the discomfort anymore. It's just another layer. Today the boy doesn't arrive. Instead, Dorian appears in the doorway. His tunic is slightly different, finer, with a narrow belt of dark red around his waist. He carries a bundle slung over one shoulder and nods toward the street. You follow. But he doesn't lead you to the workshop. He leads you away from the city. The path is unfamiliar, narrower, lined with low stone walls and olive trees whose branches hang like aged arms, twisted and wise. The leaves shimmer in the wind, silvery beneath the early sun. The sounds of the city fade behind you, replaced by the rustle of trees and the occasional chirp of birds stirring from their roosts. Dorian walks without speaking, but not coldly. His silence feels companionable now. You've learned that words are rationed here, used when needed, not to fill empty space. Eventually, the path opens into a clearing, a field. Rows of olive trees stretch outward in all directions, their trunks thick and knotted. Underfoot, the ground is dry but not brittle, soft enough to bend slightly beneath your sandals. Several others are already here, men and women, mostly older, already working. They're harvesting. Dorian places his bundle at the edge of the field. Inside are sacks, small knives, coarse cloths for wrapping the fruit. He hands one to you, demonstrates again. A slow twisting motion, cut, drop, wrap, cut, drop, wrap. The olives are not plump and ripe. They're firm, bitter, picked before they soften. You work alongside him in silence. The sun climbs, your hands stain green and purple. The juice seeps into your cuts, stinging. You keep going. Dorian works with practiced ease. His fingers dance over the branches. His back stays straight. You mimic him, falling into the rhythm, adjusting your grip, your stance, your pace. This is not craft, this is labor. Raw, repetitive, necessary. You begin to sweat. The sun presses harder now, heavy and merciless. Your tunic clings to your back. Dust clogs your nose. A bee hovers near your ear, inspecting your scent, then leaves without ceremony. Occasionally, Dorian says a word. Names of tools, of parts of the tree. You repeat them softly. The trees become your new classroom. Their language is quieter, older. By midday, you are lightheaded. A woman, thin, her eyes sunken, passes you a shallow cup of water. You drink slowly, afraid to waste it. It tastes of clay and iron and something herbal. Cooling, restorative. The group rests in the shade of the nearest wall. Bread is shared. Onions, dried figs. You sit shoulder to shoulder with people who have barely looked at you, but in this moment, you are part of the motion. Not questioned, not excluded, just another set of hands. Dorian eats beside you, He glances your way once, says something. You don't catch it all, but you understand enough. You work like someone who's lost something. You nod, because he's right. In the afternoon, the work resumes. You move slower now. Your legs feel heavy. The sun sits directly above, unblinking. You try to focus on the details, the curve of the branch, the tension in the stem, the feel of the fruit between your fingers. You lose track of time. The day becomes a loop of action and breath and sting. When at last Dorian signals the end, you are too tired to speak. You return the tools to the bundle. Wash your hands in a shallow stream nearby, the water barely enough to remove the sap and dirt. Your palms are stained, your arms scratched. You feel every muscle, every movement. On the walk back, no one talks. Even Dorian is quiet. The sun is lower now, the shadows longer. The city greets you like something asleep with one eye open. People pass with baskets, with goats, with jugs balanced on shoulders. Children chase a spinning hoop made from bronze wire. You hear laughter, but it's distant, separate. When you reach the house, the woman sees you and gestures toward the basin. You wash again, slower this time. She hands you a strip of cloth soaked in vinegar and thyme. You press it to your neck and close your eyes. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Your place here, fragile as it is beginning to take shape. You lie on your mat that night, the ache in your body like a drumbeat in the dark, and you realize something. You did not think of home today. Not once. The air the next morning is heavier than before. A grey veil has crept over the sky, muting the rising sun. The stillness is strange, almost expectant. The woman moves about her morning rituals more briskly, her face tighter, her movements more deliberate. She offers your bread with less ceremony, her eyes flicking toward the sky as if reading something you can't. You've learned not to ask questions she won't answer. Instead, you eat quietly, listening to the new texture of silence. There's no knock at the door today, no waiting figure. You step outside on your own, scanning the narrow alley for the boy, for Dorian, for some signal of where to go. But there's nothing. Only the faint echo of voices somewhere distant and the far-off sound of tools clinking against stone. Unsure but unwilling to return indoors, you walk. The streets are busier now than usual at this hour. People move with purpose. Not frantic, but faster. More focused. You see men carrying bundles of wood and cloth, women leading children by the hand, carts rolling over uneven stone, their wheels groaning under unfamiliar weight. The city is preparing, but for what, you can't yet tell. You reach the agora and find it transformed. The usual stalls are gone. In their place, workers erect wooden frames draped in fabrics of deep blue and red. Tall poles rise with fluttering banners. A group of musicians tune instruments while others scatter fresh herbs, rosemary, sage and thyme, along the ground, their scent thick in the air. Young men in white tunics move in coordinated lines, carrying garlands and baskets of dried flowers. Something sacred is coming. Dorian finds you there. He doesn't speak at first. He stands beside you, watching the preparations unfold with an expression caught between reverence and routine. Then softly, he says a single word. Thargelia. You blink. He repeats it, slower. Then explains, fragmented phrases, words half recognized, half guessed. A festival, in honor of Apollo and Artemis. A day of purification of offerings, of forgetting the past year's misfortunes and preparing for the next. A city-wide ritual of cleansing. You nod, and he nods back. For the first time, you understand each other without fully understanding the words. He leads you away from the market, toward the outskirts of the city. A wide procession route is taking shape, lined with torches not yet lit, decorated with painted pots, vines and feathers tied with simple string. Crowds are already gathering in anticipation. Families, elders, children holding sprigs of laurel in trembling hands. Dorian pulls you toward a narrower path that leads to a small temple. Its columns are modest, its walls aged and cracked, but it hums with a quiet energy. A priestess stands near the entrance, her robe white and flawless, her hair wound with golden thread. She speaks with others, quickly, clearly, directing, calming. Dorian kneels as he approaches. You mimic him. You lower your head as she passes, her bare feet silent on the cool stone. Inside, offerings cover every surface. Bowls of fruit, cakes shaped like crescent moons, small figures carved from bone and ivory. Someone is chanting softly, a boy no older than 12. The sound floats over the stones like smoke, wrapping around your arms, your face, your spine. You don't know the words. but the feeling is unmistakable. This is not ceremony, it is memory. Passed from hand to hand through generations that no longer need books, that remember by doing, by watching, by belonging. Dorian touches your shoulder and gestures for you to follow again. He brings you to a side chamber. There 2 men wait, neither young nor old, dressed in grey and black. They speak with Dorian briefly, then look at you. Their eyes linger on your tunic, your hands, your silence. You feel it again, that sense of being evaluated, not as a danger, but as a variable. They give Dorian a small bundle. He unwraps it, revealing a woven cord dyed deep red. Without explanation, he ties it around your wrist. The thread is coarse, it burns slightly. He meets your gaze. Xenos, he says. The word means foreigner, but in his voice it carries something gentler. Guest. You are not invited, but you are, for now, included. Outside, the city hums louder. Drums begin to echo down the streets, slow and steady. A rhythm meant for walking, for processions, for unity. People gather with torches unlit, waiting for the fire to move through them. Dorian leads you back toward the edge of the gathering, and you fall in beside him, uncertain of your place but unwilling to step away. The fire is lit at the temple first. Carried by a boy too young to speak the prayers but old enough to know the weight of the flame. He walks slowly, holding a clay torch tipped in olive oil and wrapped in cloth. The flame dances like a living thing. Those around him bow as he passes. You do too. The procession begins, not fast, not loud, but with a weight that pulls everything toward it. You walk, through streets now cleared of daily commerce, past buildings washed with water and hung with branches of olive and laurel. Every step carries meaning, even if the meaning is unknown to you. People sing as they move, low chants rising and falling like breath. Dorian sings too, his voice quiet but steady. You don't try to join, you simply listen. Let the sounds pass through you like wind through leaves. At the center of the city, the fire is transferred to a larger brazier. The priestess speaks words that hang heavy in the air, words that press against your skin even if they do not reach your understanding. A silence follows. Then, one by one, people step forward to throw offerings into the fire. Dried herbs, tokens, small pieces of bread, coins. Dorian nudges you gently, but still you step forward. You tear a thread from the hem of your tunic. Small, insignificant, but yours. You drop it into the flame. It catches immediately. Curling into nothing, smoke rising into the sky. No one cheers, no one applauds, but something shifts. Not in the crowd, not in the ritual, but in you. You step back and feel for the first time not like you are pretending to be part of this world, but like you already are. Night falls slowly after the festival. Not as a curtain dropped, but as a gradual softening, the sky dimming shade by shade, until the fires lit during the procession are the brightest things in the world. The streets remain alive, though the formal rituals have ended. Music lingers, lyres and pipes, the occasional clap of hands. The fire still burns at the center of the city, now surrounded by the relaxed hum of a people relieved of their duty, allowed to drift back into stories, food, and shared silence. You stay near the edge of the gathering, uncertain if you belong at the heart of the celebration. Dorian beside you crouches near a low stone step, watching the flames with half-lidded eyes. He hasn't spoken since the offering, nor have you. There's no need. A small group of children darts past, laughing, faces streaked with ash and crushed berries. A woman passes behind you, humming a tune that curls around your ears like smoke, too soft to follow. You see 2 older men deep in conversation, one gesturing toward the stars with a cup of wine, the other nodding solemnly as if deciphering constellations were a political matter. Everything tonight feels slower, softer. Even time seems to loosen its grip. Dorian rises and gestures toward a nearby table where food has been laid out. Not extravagant, but generous. Flatbreads, roasted onions, figs, bowls of lentils spiced with vinegar and herbs. You follow, your hunger awakened not by necessity, but by scent. A young girl hands you a small cup of watered wine. You take it gently. She doesn't ask your name. She simply smiles and turns away, her long braids swinging behind her. The cup is clay, rim chipped, the surface uneven. The wine tastes like earth and bitter leaves, and the tiniest trace of sweetness. Not familiar, but not unpleasant. You sit on the ground, knees tucked beneath you, cup in one hand, a piece of warm bread in the other. Dorian sits nearby, his plate full, his eyes distant. He eats methodically, occasionally brushing away the ash that drifts through the air like dry snow. Someone begins to sing. A man's voice, rich and low. The song is in a dialect older than the one you've been hearing. It drags a hush through the crowd like a tide pulling back the shore. One by one, heads turn toward the sound. The man stands beside the fire, arms at his sides, eyes closed. The words are lost on you, but the tone is unmistakable. It's a song of sorrow, of something lost, of things that can never return. It hits you unexpectedly. Your chest tightens, you swallow hard. You think of your world, not just the machines and glass and lights, but the small things. The sound of a bus groaning to a stop, the click of your bedroom door when it shuts at night. The sharp chill of a refrigerator opened too long. The way your name sounded in someone else's voice. You hadn't meant to forget, but you have. And here under stars so ancient they look like they remember your face, you feel the weight of what's missing. You blink hard, but the tears still come. Quietly, softly. Dorian notices. He doesn't speak. He simply leans over and tears a piece of his bread in half, placing it gently beside your hand. Not as comfort, not as pity, but as ritual, as presence. It's enough. When the song ends, there is no applause, only silence, like a stone dropped into a deep well. Then, slowly, the city begins to breathe again. The crowd disperses in waves. Some head toward homes, others remain near the fire, talking, whispering. A few young men climb a nearby wall and lie flat on their backs, pointing upward, naming stars with the confidence of those who've grown up beneath them. Dorian stands. You follow. Your legs are heavy, your mind distant. The red thread still tied around your wrist glows faintly in the firelight, stained now by sweat and dust. You think about untying it, but you don't. You walk in silence back through the winding alleys, past houses lit from within, past small shrines flickering with oil lamps. The world feels older tonight, not ancient, but eternal. When you reach the doorway of the woman's house, Dorian stops. He turns to you, his face unreadable in the dark. Then, quietly, he says your name, not perfectly, but close, and then one word more. Tomorrow. A promise. Then he turns and disappears down the street. Inside, the house is still. The woman is asleep, her breathing steady. You lie on your mat, the cup still in your hand. The last sip of wine now lukewarm. You stare at the ceiling, and for the first time you don't think of returning. Not because you no longer want to, but because the question has changed. It's no longer, how do I leave? It's, who am I becoming? And somewhere, out beyond the clay walls and winding alleys, the gods you don't believe in might just be watching. The morning after the festival arrives with a strange quiet. Not the quiet of sleep or of slowness, but of something paused. The city feels different now, as though it has exhaled fully and isn't yet ready to draw in breath again. The air is softer. Even the sunlight seems to move more gently across the walls. You wake with the faint taste of smoke still clinging to your tongue. Your body aches, but it's no longer a pain that startles you. It's familiar now, woven into the rhythm of each new day. The red thread around your wrist has darkened overnight, flecked with dust and oil, and you trace its rough texture with your thumb. It grounds you more than you expected. The woman does not speak as she hands you the morning's bread. A single fig sits beside it today, wrinkled and soft, its sweet scent already beginning to rise in the warmth. She meets your eyes briefly, a flicker of something unreadable passing between you. Not kindness, not warmth, but not indifference either. It's acknowledgement, and somehow that feels like more than you deserve. You step outside into a city that feels reborn. The streets are half empty. Many are still indoors, perhaps still sleeping off the wine, or lost in prayer, or simply resting after days of preparation and performance. But you sense something deeper. The festival wasn't just an event, it was a turning. From one season to the next, from one memory to another. You walk alone, not toward the workshop, not toward the fields, but along the eastern wall of the city, where few go at this hour. The stones beneath your feet are older here, cracked in places, smooth in others where time has worn down every edge. The scent of the sea reaches you faintly, carried on a breeze so light it feels imagined. Eventually you come upon a staircase carved roughly into the hillside. You climb without knowing why. At the top, the city sprawls below you, clay rooftops, twisted alleys, smoke drifting like ribbons toward the sky. Beyond that, hills roll outward like folds in a blanket, and beyond them, the glimmer of distant water. From here, it looks peaceful, controlled, but you know the chaos beneath it, the sweat, the words you don't yet know how to say. Someone speaks behind you, a low voice, measured. You turn to see a man seated beneath an olive tree, one knee drawn up, his robe wrapped loosely around his waist. He is older, not ancient, but weathered in the way that comes from watching many years pass without moving from your place. His beard is thick and silver, his eyes dark and curious. He repeats himself, slower. You recognize some of the words. He's asking why you've come. You shrug, unsure how to answer. You say the only word that feels true. Silence. He nods once, as if he approves, or understands. He gestures for you to sit. You do. For a time, nothing is said. You watch a bird glide overhead, catching invisible currents with ease. The wind shifts, brushing through the olive leaves above you. The man pulls a small satchel from his side and takes out a single round fruit. He holds it in his hand, turning it slowly, then speaks. His words come gently, as though he's not speaking to you, but to the air itself. You recognize more than you expect. He speaks of the gods, how they are not always kind, nor always cruel, how they demand recognition, not belief. He speaks of Apollo, bright and merciless, of Artemis, silent and swift, of Dionysus, who blurs lines, of Hades, who waits without hurry. He speaks not as a priest, but as someone who has lived long enough to see the gods in everything, fire, water, the trembling hand of a mother, the anger in a storm, the moment when a child is born and forgets the world it left behind. You listen, not because you understand all of it, but because it feels like the kind of truth that does not need to be understood to be real. After a time, he passes you the fruit. It's a pomegranate. You take it carefully, feeling its weight in your palm. He smiles, just barely, then stands with a groan of effort. He does not speak again. He walks past you, sandals scratching the stone, and disappears down the path with the same quiet he arrived in. You remain seated for a while longer. You roll the fruit between your hands, staring out at the city below. When you finally descend, the streets have begun to fill again. Life slowly returns. You pass a group of boys racing with hollowed reeds, chasing each other's shadows. A woman scrubs clay from her front step with a bristled brush. Two men argue over the cost of dyed cloth, their hands moving faster than their mouths. You walk without direction, letting the tide of the city carry you. At a fountain near the heart of the agora, you stop to drink. The water is cold, fresh from a buried spring. You rinse your face and look into the shallow pool at the bottom. Your reflection stares back, not as you remember, but as you are now. Sun-touched skin, dust on your cheek, eyes older than you expect. You reach into your satchel, the one they gave you when you arrived, and place the pomegranate carefully inside. You walk on. And though no one says it, you feel it in the way they glance at you now. You are no longer new. Still strange, yes, but you are no longer a question waiting for an answer. You are an answer they've learned to live with. The sun reaches its peak above the city, casting hard, defined shadows that cleave the streets like seams in parchment. The air turns dry and metallic in your mouth, tasting faintly of dust, heat, and distant olive smoke. Somewhere, a dog pants beneath a fig tree, too tired to bark, too old to chase the flies buzzing lazily near its ears. You walk along the edge of the agora, past the wide square now thrumming back to life. Merchants shout again. Clay pots clink. Bronze tools shine like slivers of daylight caught in the hands of smiths. Everything seems to be returning to what it was before the festival. But you are not. You turn into the familiar alley where the workshop hides in its humble shadow. As you approach, you hear the telltale creak of wood, the repetitive slap of leather against the stone table, and the slow cadence of Dorian's voice. He's teaching again. Not to you this time, but to someone else. A younger boy, maybe 12, with long limbs and a nervous expression. His hands fumble at the leather strap, his concentration folding in on itself with every hesitant motion. Dorian notices you. He doesn't smile, he never really does, but there's a softening in his gaze, a slight tilt of his head, an acknowledgement that feels more personal than any greeting. He gestures toward the side table. Your place. You sit, wordlessly, and take up the awl, the thread, the leather piece laid out before you. It fits under your hands like it remembers you. The motions come faster now. You no longer have to think about each step, each stitch. Your fingers remember for you. Your mind is free to drift. As you work, you listen. To the boy's slow breathing. To Dorian's quiet corrections. To the rustling of the grapevine that leans over the workshop wall, shaking occasionally with a breeze that doesn't reach the ground. Today, there is no lesson for you, only labour. And somehow that feels like more of a belonging than any ritual or symbol. Hours pass unnoticed, interrupted only by the occasional call from the street or the burst of laughter from someone beyond the walls. A woman passes the doorway carrying a basket of dyed wool. A man with sunburned arms stops to ask Dorian something about an order. He gestures toward a list carved into a scrap of wood. Names, numbers, markings you don't understand yet. Not everything can be learned at once. Not even survival. When the sun begins its descent, you are already finished. You've made a full pair today. Sturdy sandals, the straps even, the soles clean. You place them beside the others and wipe your hands on the hem of your tunic, surprised at how little pain there is now. The blisters have hardened into calluses. Your fingers are learning to forget softness. Dorian approaches, inspects the pair, runs his thumb along the stitching. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. He sets them with the others and nods once toward the open door. You step out into the fading light. He joins you. The streets are glowing in the amber hue of late day, shadows long and golden. The sky is clear now, no clouds to diffuse the light. It sharpens everything, edges, colours, movements. You walk side by side without destination. He points to a man painting pottery in a stall by the road, the designs intricate and familiar. Dorian names each figure on the vase, Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, though the last name he says slowly, almost as if testing you. You repeat it. Your mouth wraps around the vowels differently than his, but close enough. He nods. You pass a group of young men practicing wrestling in a courtyard, their bodies dusty and glistening, their shouts punctuated by laughter and the occasional grunt of effort. An older man watches them, arms crossed, his face severe but proud. Dorian nods toward him. Palestra, he says, you know the word. The gymnasium. But it's more than that here. It's where boys learn to be men, where philosophy meets muscle, where politics and pain are taught through sweat and repetition. You stop for a moment to watch. One of the boys glances your way but says nothing. You are no longer novel, and that, strangely, feels like progress. The two of you continue until you reach a slope at the edge of the city, just beyond the watchtower. There, the land opens to the hills and the winding road that snakes down toward the plain. In the distance, faint smoke curls from a small farming settlement. Closer, sheep graze lazily in the last light of day. Dorian sits on a flat rock, leans back on his hands. You sit beside him. He speaks slowly now, more than before. Telling you about the land beyond the city, about the farms, the people who live outside the walls. Some are citizens, others not. Some are free, others live in arrangements too complicated to define in a single word. He tells you about the festivals they have out there, simpler ones. About fires lit in circles, about songs that are never sung the same way twice. You listen, you ask questions when you can. Simple ones. You don't always get answers, but sometimes he smiles. And sometimes silence is better than understanding. The sun dips low, nearly gone. The city begins to glow again, not with firelight, but with the warmth of community. Lamps flicker in windows, laughter spills from behind wooden doors. Someone begins to play a pipe far off, the melody thin and wandering. You walk back together. The path feels familiar now. When you part ways near the house, Dorian raises a hand, not in farewell, not in formality, just a hand, as if to say, this day happened, and it was enough. Inside, the woman is preparing lentils. She doesn't look up as you enter, but she slides a second bowl across the table this time. Not just bread, not just water, a full bowl. You eat slowly, and when you lie down on the mat that night, you don't look at the ceiling. You close your eyes, and you dream not of home, but of a pair of sandals resting beside a door. The dreams, when they come, are different now. No longer fragmented scenes of your past life, of glowing screens and crowded trains, of flashing lights behind shut eyes, but quieter, earthier. You dream of hills carpeted in wild thyme, of hands shaping clay, of firelight flickering on stone walls. You dream of language, unfamiliar words that your dreaming self somehow understands, spoken with the weight of memory rather than learning. You wake before dawn, unsure where the dream ends and the waking begins. The house is still, save for the sound of the woman grinding grain in the back room. You sit up slowly, the mat warm beneath your back, your tunic twisted from sleep. The air is cooler than it has been, moist, touched by the ghost of sea winds. You can smell it now, that briny pull just beyond the hills. It beckons like something half-remembered. When she notices you, the woman gives a brief nod and sets out a small bowl of olives and barley bread. No words. But the food is more than enough. You eat quickly, rinse your face with water from the clay basin, and step out into the street, not waiting for anyone to collect you. The city is yours now, at least in part. Enough that your feet know where to go. Enough that no one stops to stare anymore. The sun is only beginning to colour the sky when you reach the workshop. Dorian is already there. He stands by the doorway, arms folded, watching a man unload bundles of leather from a mule-drawn cart. The leather is wrapped in linen and tied with rope, each piece marked with small black symbols you cannot yet read. The air is filled with the smell of tannin and bark. Dorian looks up, nods, and gestures toward a low bench. Today will not be like the others. You feel it before he says anything. You sit, watching as he unties the bundles with practiced ease, his fingers moving quickly but never rushing. One by one, he lays the sheets of leather out under the awning, weighing the corners with stones to keep them flat. When he finally speaks, his voice is softer than usual. He points to a larger, darker sheet near the back. Armor, he says. For training, for war. The word lands heavily. War. Not a myth now. Not something from painted pottery or old songs. A thing that breathes here, that waits just outside the fields. You look at the leather differently now. It is not for sandals. It is not for pouches. It is for bodies. To protect or to outlast. Dorian hands you a blade, shows you how to cut the leather into narrow strips, then soften it with oil. He moves slower today, more deliberate. The others in the workshop, 2 older boys and a man with a half-healed burn on his arm, work quietly, each on their own piece. No one jokes, no one hums. You begin cutting. The leather is thick, dense with oil, harder to work with than sandal pieces. Your arms tire quickly, but you do not stop. You match Dorian's movements as best you can, watching the way he presses the blade, the angle of his hands, the patience in every stroke. As the morning passes, Dorian begins to explain more. He tells you of a nearby skirmish, a border quarrel between neighbouring cities. Nothing official, nothing declared. But there are whispers. Men being called to train. Young boys being sized for shields. Old veterans remembering how to string a bow. It's not fear, he says, it's preparedness. You ask how far. He doesn't answer with miles or days. Just a shrug. Close enough. The phrase curls in your stomach like unripe fruit. You keep cutting. By midday, your hands are sore and darkened with oil. Dorian takes the strips you finished and begins threading them into a frame made of polished wood. It will become a chest piece, layered and tied tightly to deflect a blade. You run your hand across the half-finished armor, feeling the weight, the tension. It's heavier than you expected. Later, Dorian sends you to the tannery on the eastern edge of the city. You walk alone, carrying an empty sack over your shoulder, the instructions still ringing in your ears. The tannery is nothing like the workshop. It reeks of lime, of flesh, of wet earth and things long dead. The workers here are shirtless, their skin stained in streaks of black and ochre. They barely glance at you. You give the name Dorian told you and are handed a wrapped bundle, still damp. You don't ask what kind of skin it is. You don't want to know. You carry it back as the sun begins to dip. Along the way you pass the agora. People are gathered there again, not in celebration, but in preparation. There are men sparring with wooden staffs. A group kneels beside a teacher, reciting lines from a scroll. The words rise in chant-like rhythms, structured and clear. Every face is serious, focused. You recognize the change. The city, so full of ritual and rhythm, is bracing. For what? It isn't yet saying. But it's there, in the way people move now, tighter, faster, in the way conversations pause when you walk by, in the way children's laughter has quieted in the alleys. You return to the workshop, deliver the bundle. Dorian takes it without speaking. He unties the cloth, checks the contents, then nods once. You clean your hands at the basin, the water turning dark as it runs from your palms. When you leave, the sky is low and gold, a soft hush falling over the rooftops. You don't walk straight home. You wander. Past the hill where you met the old man, past the shrine where you watched Dorian touch the stone. You move like someone trying to memorize the path back, just in case. At the house, the woman waits. She looks at your hands, then at your face. She doesn't ask anything. She never does. But she sets an extra piece of bread beside your bowl. You eat in silence. The night settles gently, the way old cloth drapes over tired shoulders, and as you lie on your mat, arms aching, the word still echoes in your head. War. Not a story, not a statue, but a thing with teeth, and you wonder what will be asked of you when it arrives. The next few days unfold in quiet tension. The city does not announce its fear. It does not wail, does not weep. Instead it tightens like a fist beneath a cloak. The streets remain orderly, the markets open, but there's something in the air now, a kind of unspoken agreement that the days are not the same. Eyes linger longer. Words are chosen more carefully. The laughter of children is still heard, but it's thinner, as though they too have absorbed some knowledge passed in whispers. You wake earlier each morning, not because you're ordered to, but because sleep grows lighter, shallower. You rise with the first soft stirring of birds outside the house, your feet already used to the stone floor, your hands already reaching for the coarse blue tunic folded by your mat. The woman has stopped waiting for you. She leaves your food on the small clay plate, wrapped in a cloth, her movements a few steps ahead of yours. There's no animosity in it, just a rhythm that has synchronized without ceremony. On the fourth morning after the festival, Dorian takes you not to the workshop, but to the edge of the training grounds. He doesn't explain why. You follow him without question, the way you've learned to. The gymnasium is alive with movement, bodies twisting, striking, falling. Bare feet slap against sand and gravel. Men wrestle in the dust, their skin smeared with oil and dirt, muscles coiled with tension. Others practice with blunt spears, shouting words of command in unison as they step and thrust. You've seen this before from a distance, but never like this. Up close it's more brutal, more human. No choreography, no theatre, just sweat and survival. Dorian stands beside a man with a square jaw and a face like carved wood. The man eyes you, says something curt in a dialect too quick for you to follow. Dorian replies, brief and even. Then he gestures to a pile of staves, long wooden rods wrapped in cloth at the ends. Your heart shifts in your chest. You're being handed one. You hesitate. Dorian's gaze doesn't change, so you step forward and take it. The weight surprises you, not because it's heavy, but because it feels alive, as if it's waiting to be used. The cloth at the end is stained already, dark spots where practice struck too close to real. The man with the jaw gestures to a marked circle in the dirt. You step into it. A younger boy stands across from you, perhaps a year or two younger than you, slim, barefoot. His hair is tied back with a strip of cloth. He holds his stave easily, like he's done this before. You barely raise yours before he moves. The first strike comes fast, an arc toward your ribs. You stumble back, raising the stave just in time to deflect it, the shock of the impact rattling up your arms. He steps again, this time toward your thigh. You block again, less gracefully. Your feet skid in the dust. You don't win. Not this time. But you don't fall either. That, it seems, is enough. The man calls the bout with a sharp word. The boy bows slightly, then moves on. You step out of the circle, panting, arms buzzing. Dorian watches you carefully. His face remains unreadable, but you think maybe you see the edge of approval. Not for skill, but for staying upright. The training continues, not just for you, for dozens of others. Some your age, some older, some with the blank stares of slaves, others with the prideful gait of citizens. In this space, distinctions blur. Every body is equal in the dust. Every bruise is earned the same way. You return the next day, and the next. Not because you are forced to, but because something inside you begins to want it. There's clarity here. Pain, yes, but a purpose behind it. A structure that makes sense, even if the world does not. Dorian teaches you to hold the stave differently. Closer to the center. To watch the shoulders, not the eyes. To breathe out when you strike. To step, not just swing. He says little, but shows much. You learn by imitation, not instruction. You grow stronger, slowly, imperceptibly. But the strength is not just in your arms, it's in your breath. In the way you begin to carry yourself through the city. You walk straighter, not proud, not arrogant, but like someone who expects to arrive. In the evenings, your body aches in new places. Your hands are blistered again, and your legs feel like stone. The woman notices, but says nothing. One night, she sets a shallow bowl of water near your mat. It smells of rosemary and crushed mint. You soak your hands in it until the pain dulls to a throb. You begin to sleep more deeply, but the dreams return. This time they are not about your old world. They are filled with sounds. Metal striking wood, sandals running through gravel, the quiet breath of anticipation before movement. You dream of your own hands wrapped tightly around a spear, and of voices shouting in a tongue that now feels like yours. One night, Dorian walks you home in silence. As you near the house, he stops and speaks, just one sentence. Soon you may be called. You don't ask for what, because you know. This place you did not choose is shaping you, and the world you fell into without warning is beginning to prepare you for something real. Not because you belong, but because you are no longer separate. The wind changes. It's subtle at first, a shift in how it moves through the narrow alleys, a new taste on the air. Dust lingers longer in the corners of courtyards. The sun burns with a sharper edge, as though trying to harden the city beneath it. Birds fly differently, higher, quieter. You notice it because you've learned to notice small things now. Not just because they're different, but because difference matters here. Small changes mean more than they used to. A missing face, a new robe, a word spoken where there was silence yesterday. Something's coming, and though no one says it outright, everyone seems to know. The workshop has become a different place. Gone are the sandals, the pouches, the careful stitching of market goods. Now, leather breastplates line the benches. Wooden shield frames lean against the walls, half covered in wet hides stretched taut over their surfaces. Dorian no longer shows you the finer details. He moves quickly, silently. His focus narrowed. You learn by watching, by copying, by surviving his quiet corrections. One morning you arrive and find 3 strangers waiting outside the door, soldiers or something close to it, not in polished armor, not with gleaming helmets, but in the way they stand, in the way they measure you without speaking. They speak to Dorian in low voices. He listens, nods once, then turns to you. "We go," that's all he says. You don't ask where, you just follow. The soldiers lead the way. Not hurried, but not slowly either. Their steps are efficient, practiced. You pass through streets you've seen before, but from a different angle now. Not as an observer, not as a shadow, but as something seen. Watched, measured. You reach a long, low building near the edge of the training grounds. It looks like nothing from the outside, just stone and wood, plain and weathered. But inside, the walls are lined with weapons. Spears stacked in rows, bronze helmets hanging from pegs. Short swords, xiphos you've learned, wrapped in linen and laid out on wooden racks. A man waits at a table in the center of the room. He's older than the others. His skin is marked by years of sun, and his eyes are narrow, focused. A scar runs down the side of his neck like a dried riverbed. He doesn't rise as you enter. He simply gestures to the bench. You sit. He speaks to Dorian, then to you. Slowly. Clearly. His voice carries weight, not from volume, but from certainty. You understand most of it. Enough to know this is not a choice. You're to be fitted, not for parade, for readiness. He gestures to one of the assistants, who brings over a padded linen tunic and helps you remove your own. The new one is stiffer, heavier. It smells of sweat and smoke. They measure your chest, your shoulders, your waist. Another brings a curved plate of boiled leather and straps it over your torso, adjusting it with rough fingers. Then comes the helmet. Bronze, lined with horsehair padding, its cheek guards brushing your jaw. You stare at your reflection in a small polished plate. You don't recognize the person there. Not because they are unfamiliar, but because they are becoming something real. You feel the weight of it. Not just the armor, the expectation, the transformation. Once, you were no one. Now, you are someone to be called upon. Dorian walks you home that day. He says little, as always, but as you near the house, he pauses. The evening light cuts sharply across his face, deepening every line. He reaches into the small pouch at his side and pulls out something wrapped in cloth. He offers it to you. You unwrap it slowly. It's a dagger, short, simple, the hilt bound in dark leather, the blade plain but sharp. You look at him. He doesn't smile, he only nods. Not for glory, he says. For breath. You understand. You return home with the dagger hidden beneath your tunic. The woman doesn't speak when you enter, but her eyes flicker once to the new weight in your stance. She places your bowl on the table, but tonight there's an extra piece of cheese, soft, fragrant, wrapped in fig leaf. You eat in silence, the dagger resting beside your mat. That night, the city feels tighter, not in fear, but in readiness. You hear men gathering near the walls, their voices low. The sound of shields being checked, of spears scraping stone, of sandals pacing like thoughts that cannot be settled. You lie on your mat, eyes open. You listen, to the wind, to the heartbeat of a city that no longer sees you as a stranger. You are not a citizen, not a soldier, but you are no longer a part. You've been folded into the fabric, and you know now, when the time comes, they will not ask who you were, only what you can endure. The next morning does not arrive quietly. It rises with the clang of metal, with hurried footsteps on stone, with the short, barking calls of men gathering in the pre-dawn dark. You're awake before the sun crests the hills, your eyes already open, breath held without realizing it. The dagger lies beside you untouched, but not forgotten. You dress quickly, the tunic fits differently now, your body harder, your movements less uncertain. The leather strap you use to bind your waist feels smoother in your hands, worn into your grip by weeks of repetition. The woman meets you at the door. She does not ask where you're going. She only presses a flat, warm loaf into your hand and nods once. Her fingers brush yours for the first time. They are rough, calloused but steady. There is no fear in her gaze, only an unspoken finality, as if she's seen this scene before, countless times. You leave the house and step into a world on edge. Men gather near the agora, some armed, others carrying bundles of supplies, bread wrapped in cloth, wineskins slung over shoulders, spears in hand. They wear no uniforms, but they are unified by expression, by the weight in their eyes. You recognize some of them. The older boy from the workshop, the quiet man who sharpens blades near the eastern gate. Dorian is there too, speaking to a man with a long scar down his arm, his voice calm but firm. When he sees you, he gestures without words. You fall in beside him. No one explains where you're going, but everyone knows. The group moves through the city, past shuttered windows and temples where flickering oil lamps still burn from the night before. At the northern edge, near the outer wall, a gathering point has formed. Dozens more wait, some with armor, some without. A few priests walk among them, offering quick blessings in murmured tones, drawing invisible symbols in the air with their fingers. You watch them pass. One stops before you. He lays his hand briefly on your chest, just over your sternum, and mutters something you cannot understand, but it feels like closure, or perhaps permission. And then the gate opens. The countryside stretches before you, blanketed in pale mist. The road leads downhill, bending around the lower terraces of farmland and toward the distant hills where the horizon begins to shimmer with heat. Fields of barley wave quietly in the breeze, unaware of the men passing by. The pace is steady, not rushed, but not wandering. Dorian walks just ahead of you, his spear held loosely in one hand. You notice the way his feet fall, always deliberate, always balanced. Even here, he moves like someone who has seen what lies beyond the next rise. His silence now carries a weight different from before. You don't speak either. There's nothing to say. The group travels for hours, the morning light sharpening into something harsher, the silence broken only by the occasional cough, the creak of leather, the shuffle of sandals. Sweat beads along your neck. Your limbs ache, not from weakness, but from the strain of carrying more than weight. You pass a small shrine set beside the road, a crumbling statue of Hermes. Its feet chipped, its mouth worn smooth by wind. A boy stops to place a stone at its base. Others follow. You do too. It feels right. By midday, the group halts near a ridge. Below, in the shallow valley, another gathering is visible. Not many, perhaps 30 men, camped by a stream, their tents shaped from canvas and hides. Horses stand tethered to nearby trees, snorting quietly, their breath catching in the sunlight. Dorian speaks to the commander. The group splits. Some remain behind to watch the rise. Others, including you, begin to descend toward the camp. The air thickens. There is no charge, no battle cry. This is not war as you imagined it, clashing armies and banners flying in grand declarations. It is quiet, measured, almost cautious. A few of the men from the camp notice your group and begin to approach, weapons lowered but not forgotten. One man calls out. His voice echoes off the stones. Dorian answers, and for a few moments, all you hear is wind and breath and tension. Then, a command. Everyone stops, spears are grounded, and slowly, like the turning of a tide, the confrontation dissolves, not into friendship, but into negotiation. Later, you learn the details. A border misunderstanding, too small for real war, too large to ignore. The kind of dispute solved by showing readiness, not aggression. A display of presence, of unity, of will. You sit in the shade of a low tree, heart still pounding from the descent, your hands tight around the haft of your spear. Your body had prepared for something more, for something final. Instead, you are left with the heavy hum of restraint. That evening, you help set camp nearby. Not permanent, just for the night. Dorian joins you as the sun begins to fall, passing you a shared water skin. You drink deeply, the water warm but soothing. He sits beside you, the silence between you no longer stiff. After a time, he speaks. You stood, he says. You look at him, unsure what he means, but he nods toward the valley, toward the road behind you, toward the place you came from. You didn't fall. You say nothing. He doesn't need you to. The stars rise slowly above the hills. The fire is small but steady, and around it you sit with men who only weeks ago would have seen you as a stranger. Now they pass you bread and a story and a place. Night in the valley is colder than the city. The air sinks between the hills like water in a cracked bowl, clinging to skin, biting through tunics, stiffening fingers. The stars are clearer here, unfiltered, countless, arranged in constellations you've only ever seen in dusty diagrams or digital screens. Now they are above you, massive and patient, watching. The men sleep in uneven circles around the dying fire, cloaks pulled tightly, weapons close at hand. Dorian sits apart from the others, his back against a flat stone, knees drawn up, a small knife flicking through a piece of wood in his hand. The shape he carves isn't clear. Maybe it never will be. His movements aren't about form. They're about stillness. You lie on your back, using your folded tunic as a pillow, your eyes fixed on the night sky. Everything is so quiet now, too quiet, and yet your mind refuses to rest. You expect fear, but it doesn't come the way it used to. Not sharp and immediate, but dull, creeping, as if it has settled into your bones like the cold. A kind of readiness, perhaps, or something closer to exhaustion. You sleep in pieces, 20 minutes at a time, waking to the sound of someone shifting, the crackle of a twig in the dark, the groan of leather as a man turns in his sleep. At dawn, a bird calls from the trees, then another, then a chorus. The sky glows pink at the edges, the fire now only a bed of coals. Dorian rises first. He douses the embers with water from his flask, then moves to wake the others with quiet nudges and soft words. No one complains. No one hesitates. You eat standing up. Dried figs and barley cake, a few sips of water. Your stomach protests, not from hunger, but from fatigue. You press your palms into your eyes until the blurriness fades. Then you gather your things. The spear, the dagger, a borrowed satchel. By the time the sun breaches the hills, you're already walking. This time, not toward confrontation, but toward witness. The group moves deeper into the countryside, past olive groves and stone walls crumbling under ivy. Shepherds nod as you pass. A boy waves, then hides behind his mother's skirt. These people live close to the land, and closer to its dangers. You see it in their movements, in the way they carry their silence like tools. By midday, the group halts again, this time near a stream winding through a small gorge. Dorian points to a cluster of low structures in the distance, barely visible against the hills. Old outpost, he says. Abandoned. We check it. You nod. You're one of 4 chosen to go. Dorian, of course. A wiry man named Theron, who rarely speaks but always smiles. A tall boy named Nicandros, younger than you but sharper with a spear. And you. You leave your packs by the stream and begin the walk uphill. The climb is slow, cautious. The sun is brighter now, but the shadows in the gorge are cool, deceptive. Birds scatter ahead. The wind kicks dust into your eyes. You blink, steadying your breath. The outpost appears before you like something forgotten. 2 towers of stacked stone, one crumbled at the top. A low wall, no gates, no markings, just the echo of what it used to be. It doesn't look like much, but it's high, and from here you can see the whole valley, the entire stretch of road leading back to the city. You move in silence, stepping carefully across moss-covered stones. Inside, the air is still. The rooms are bare, Just bones of structure, walls with holes, a dry well, a collapsed ceiling where ivy drips like green rope. You search, not for enemies, there are none, but for signs, for markings, for use. Theron finds an old hearth still black with soot. Nicandros picks up a clay shard and turns it in his fingers. Dorian climbs the remaining tower and surveys the land. You follow. At the top, the wind hits harder. You kneel beside him. He points. To the north, a small plume of smoke curls in the distance. Too small to be a village, too far to be a camp. You both watch. Neither of you speak. Eventually he nods, stands and begins the climb down. You linger a moment longer, looking, not just at the smoke, but at the hills, the road, the sky, at the world you've fallen into. And for the first time it feels like something fragile, something that must be guarded. You descend. The report is brief. Dorian speaks with the leader, points toward the smoke. No decision is made, but scouts are sent. You return to the stream, refill your flask, soak your aching feet in the cold water. That night, around the fire, stories are told. Theron speaks of a woman he once knew who wrestled a boar with her bare hands. Nicandros tries to imitate a travelling actor from the Agora, much to the amusement of the others. Even Dorian, eventually, says something that passes for a joke. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because the moment allows it. Later, as the stars return, you sit with your dagger in hand. Not to use, just to feel its weight, the leather of the grip, the curve of the blade, the quiet power in it. You think of the priest's hand on your chest, of the way the city gathered to send you here without words, of the red thread still tied around your wrist, now faded and frayed. You are not who you were. Not quite who you'll be. But here, in this valley, under the same stars that watched over men for thousands of years, you are part of the pattern. You lie back, the dagger resting beside you, and for the first time since arriving in this world, you let sleep take you, without fear. The days that follow settle into a rhythm shaped by vigilance. No skirmish arrives, no enemy approaches, but the smoke on the horizon never disappears. It returns each morning like a breath held too long, curling above the hills, distant yet insistent. And so the men wait, not in stillness but in motion, training, patrolling, maintaining. The outpost becomes a second skin, a small world carved into the larger one. Every stone, every slope, every shadow begins to feel familiar. You rise before dawn now. No one wakes you. You simply know when the sky is ready. Your body stirs with the birds. You wrap your cloak tighter against the chill, step over sleeping forms and drink from the stream while the light is still blue and cold. Some mornings, Dorian joins you. Other times it's Nicandros, rubbing his eyes and cursing the morning under his breath. You've grown used to the weight of the spear in your hand. The dagger on your side no longer feels strange. You clean both each night without instruction, without thought. Just as you eat, just as you stretch the sore joints in your shoulders and knees, just as you run drills with the others in the dust near the olive trees. Each action is part of a ritual now. Each repetition, a step away from the person you were. On the 5th day in the valley, a scout returns. He arrives alone, his tunic torn, blood dried along one arm. He says only a few words before collapsing. You hear them spoken again, quieter this time, passed between men like a secret. Ambush, travellers, North Trail. No orders are given immediately. The leaders speak in low tones, drawing lines in the dust with sticks, weighing words against silence. Dorian stands nearby, listening, his face still, his arms folded, his eyes distant. That evening, the mood changes. No one says it, but you feel it in every motion. The way men eat more quickly, the way they double-check their gear, the way laughter disappears like breath in winter. You sit beside Nicandros while he rewraps the leather on his spear shaft. He works quickly, muttering to himself. When he catches you watching, he offers half a smile. "I hope it's nothing," he says, then pauses. "But I'd rather be ready than wrong." You nod, because there's nothing else to say. That night, you don't sleep. Neither do many others. Some lie with their eyes open, others pace. A few sit by the fire, sharpening bronze blades that glint like slivers of sun even under starlight. You sit with your back against a rock, cloak wrapped tightly, eyes fixed on the shadows between the trees. At one point, Dorian approaches. He lowers himself beside you and pulls something from a pouch. A dried olive branch, its leaves brittle and curled. He places it gently on the ground between you. "A charm," he says, "for the morning." You nod, fingers tracing the shape of one leaf, its surface like parchment. Will there be a morning? You ask softly. His eyes shift toward the dark horizon. There's always a morning, he replies. The question is only who sees it. You don't respond, because the truth is already there between you. The stars feel farther away tonight, the world tighter. You close your eyes in pieces, drifting in and out of sleep like a boat swaying on quiet waves. Your dreams return, not of battle, but of the city, of the woman setting your food down without words, of the oil lamp flickering near the hearth, of the old man who once handed you a wax tablet and waited as you scratched a single word onto its surface, English. You don't dream of that word anymore. You dream in the shapes and sounds of this place now. You wake just before dawn to the sound of movement. Boots, shields, quiet voices. Dorian stands, already dressed, already armed. He sees you rise and offers you a piece of bread. You eat it slowly as the light begins to touch the tops of the olive trees. Then comes the order. The scouts are to be followed. A small group will leave the camp, not for battle, they say, for clarity. Dorian is chosen. So is Nicandros, and so are you. You're handed extra rations, a flask. Your spear is checked, your armor pulled tight, your dagger retied to your belt. Everything is touched, measured, reaffirmed. You begin the climb north. The path winds through thorny brush and steep ridges. The land grows quieter the farther you go. Even the birds seem wary here. At midday, the wind changes, and with it, the smell of ash. You find the first sign just beyond a bend in the trail. A wagon, half burned, its wheel broken. The canvas covering is scorched, its edges fluttering like charred petals. There is no one nearby, only silence and the remnants of something that once moved. You move slowly now, cautiously, eyes sharp, ears straining. Every twig becomes a threat, every shadow a possibility. You crest a hill and see it, not a battle, but an aftermath. Another wagon overturned, 3 bodies face down in the dirt, no soldiers, just traders, civilians. One of them no older than you. Dorian kneels beside one of them and says a quiet word. You stand still, spear in hand, breath shallow. This is not a story in a scroll. This is not a painted vase. This is what waits when you are not prepared. This is what the city sends you to witness. You help cover the bodies. You help mark the site with stones. You leave nothing behind but the olive branch Dorian gave you, now resting quietly at the feet of the youngest corpse. On the way back, no one speaks. Even Nicandros is silent. When the sun begins to dip and the sky takes on its amber hue, you feel something inside you begin to shift. Not break, not harden, but narrow. A focus, a realization. You are not here to be brave. You are here to watch, to carry, to remember, and maybe, when the time comes, to hold the line between what was lost and what might be saved. The camp receives you in silence. Not the curious, tentative hush that had followed your arrival weeks ago, but a solemn quiet that settles over the valley like a mist. The men see it in your faces, in the way Dorian walks ahead without speaking, in the soot still darkening your sleeves, in the way Nicandros, usually restless, now moves slowly, as if every step is tethered to something behind him. The commander doesn't need a full report, he reads it in your eyes. Still, Dorian speaks, voice low and clear. The details are given. No drama, no embellishment, only facts. Smoke, fire, 3 dead, no sign of the attackers, no known emblem, no clear motive. A small caravan targeted without warning. Travellers unarmed. You sit nearby on a stone, your back to the fire, your hands resting on your knees. You feel the shape of the day still clinging to you, the weight of the bodies, the rough stone cairns, the smell of burned cloth. Your spear lies across your lap, untouched since morning. No one praises you, no one offers comfort, but you're handed water and bread and a place to sit. That's enough. That night, Dorian doesn't speak to you. He simply sits beside you while the fire crackles and the night drips slowly across the hills. Around you, the camp stirs in subdued activity, oil poured into lamps, weapons cleaned, shifts arranged. The valley holds its breath. You don't sleep much. The images won't let you. Not because they're violent, but because they're still. Frozen. The open mouth of the boy beneath the wheel, the blood dried in the dirt, the hand that had tried to shield a younger body. Not war, just loss, silent and unclaimed. In the hours before dawn, you rise and walk. The stars are still out, clinging stubbornly to the last ink of night. You find yourself at the edge of the camp, where the land drops into a narrow stream lined with stones. You crouch there, washing your hands without needing to. The water is cold, biting, and it clears nothing, but the gesture feels necessary. Behind you, someone approaches. You don't turn. You already know the rhythm of the steps. Dorian sits beside you. He holds a small bundle wrapped in cloth. When he opens it, you see a few pieces of cured meat, a fig, and a single, still warm piece of barley bread. He tears the bread in half and hands you one part. You eat in silence, chewing slowly. The bread tastes of ash. After a while, he speaks. "Do you understand now?" You don't answer. He doesn't need one. You thought it would come like fire, he continues, with noise, banners, swords in the sun. But most of the time, it comes like this, quiet, ugly, without warning. You swallow, the bite heavy in your throat. "They were no one's enemy," you say softly. He nods. "That's why it matters." He says nothing else. When the sun rises, the scouts leave again, this time with more men. Not a war party, but not a message of peace either. The patrols double, the boundaries of the camp expand, fires burn lower, every movement becomes deliberate. The tone changes, not panicked, but sharper. Tension like a string drawn just tight enough to sing if plucked. You return to your duties, but everything feels different now. Every strip of leather you cut for a shield is heavier. Every knot tied in armor is a prayer you don't know how to say aloud. You check your spear 3 times before drills, your dagger 4. You sleep less, eat slower, listen more. Nicandros doesn't make jokes anymore, but he still trains beside you, still matches your pace when you run through the low hills, still glances sideways after every spar, as if to make sure you're still there. One night, you find him staring at the fire with an expression you can't name. "They had nothing," he says, as if you were already speaking. "Not even weapons, just goods, and a boy." You nod. He shakes his head. "Sometimes I think the gods must be deaf." You don't respond, because you've wondered that too. The city sends supplies 3 days later. Mules, olive oil, dried fruit, new linen for tunics. The cloth smells of sea wind and clay. Familiar, comforting. Among the goods is a bundle for you, wrapped carefully, tied with red thread. Inside, a clean tunic, a strip of soft leather for regripping your dagger, a single scroll. You recognize the hand. The woman from the house. No words written, just a pressed sprig of thyme between the folds of parchment. You hold it to your nose and it smells like her kitchen, like the mornings before this all began, like a world where your hands were only learning how to tie a sandal strap, not how to wrap cloth around a wound. That night you sit alone beneath the trees. The fire is far behind you. The stars are above you. The scroll rests beside you, unrolled. The sprig of thyme crumbles slowly under your fingers. You don't cry, not because you aren't mourning, but because there's something deeper than grief in you now. A kind of stillness, a widening. You know the world will not stop for your sorrow, but you also know you are no longer drifting through it. You are part of it, anchored. And when the morning comes again, when the spear is placed back in your hand, you will carry it not for glory, but for the memory of 3 nameless lives, and the silence they left behind. The morning arrives in a hush, the kind that feels borrowed from winter, though the season hasn't turned. The light is soft, filtered through a veil of drifting mist. The camp stirs slowly, like a great animal blinking awake after a long watchful night. Men speak in whispers, if they speak at all. The fire is coaxed back to life with careful hands, its glow pushing faintly against the grey. You move through the waking camp with the quiet instinct of routine. Water first. Always water. You rinse your face at the stream, splash your neck, breathe in the cold that bites like flint against skin. Then bread, still coarse and dry, but less offensive to your stomach now. Then spear. You check its length, the wrappings, the edge of the iron tip, though you know it well by now. You do it for the same reason others do, not to find anything wrong, but to be reminded that it's there, that you're still here. Today, you are assigned to the eastern slope, a small hill, sparse with trees overlooking one of the many paths into the valley. You are not alone. A pair of brothers accompany you, tall, broad-shouldered men with matching thick brows and the same easy silence. They speak to each other in fragments, with looks more than words. Their names are Menon and Lyros. You've seen them wrestle down near the stream, laugh over crushed figs, argue about clouds. But now, they speak only of distances, movement, the slope of terrain. You set your positions just after sunrise. Menon stands behind a low cluster of rocks, scanning the horizon. Lyros climbs a tree, a good one, with limbs like a frozen wave. You sit near a fallen log, the spear across your knees, back to a flat stone warmed faintly by the early sun. Birds flit in and out of branches above, scattering soft notes across the silence. Hours pass like this. The sun rises slowly, then holds, then begins its descent. You speak little, but the silence is not empty. You begin to understand that here, presence is the language. That your being there, alert, upright, steady, is a kind of conversation, a kind of promise. That if something were to come down that road, they would know you had seen it. That you would not run, that you would hold the line for them to return. Late in the afternoon, movement. Not danger, but life. A traveller approaches from the east, a herder likely, judging by the staff and the hunched shape moving alongside him, too short and quick to be anything but a goat. He sees you on the hill and raises a hand in cautious greeting. Lyros gives the signal. 2 short whistles. You watch the man pass, his form small and fragile against the sweep of the hills. For a moment he disappears into a dip in the land. You hold your breath. Then he emerges again and something in your chest unclenches. Menon tosses a stone lazily at a stump nearby. It misses, but not by much. When the sun dips behind the hills and the shadows begin to stretch, you're relieved. The brothers grunt in approval and begin the short descent back to camp. You follow, your body sore in its quiet, familiar places. Shoulders, knees, lower back. Not sharp pain, just the soft hum of use. At the camp, the fire is already lit. The men gathered tighter tonight, speaking a little more freely. Stories return, if only in fragments. Nicandros is carving something from olive wood, his mouth pressed in concentration. Theron plays a tune on a bone flute, the notes skipping softly over the flames. Dorian is not near the fire. You find him outside the circle, seated by the edge of the stream, watching the reflection of the moon in the water. He does not look up when you approach, nor when you sit beside him. But after a moment he speaks. It was quiet today. You nod. That's how it is, he says. For days, for weeks, quiet. Then one moment that tears through it. You think of the outpost, the burned wagon, the 3 shapes beneath stones. You ask, does it always come? He doesn't answer immediately. Then, yes, eventually. He says it not with dread, but with certainty. Not a threat, a truth. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out a piece of dried pomegranate, places it in your palm. The fruit is dark, dense with flavour. You bite into it slowly, the sweetness catching you off guard. When you return to the fire, Nicandros has finished his carving. He holds it up for you to see. It's a horse, crude but elegant in its posture, the legs shaped mid-gallop, the head bowed slightly as if listening to something far away. He tosses it to you without a word. You catch it, feel its weight, its light, smooth in places where his thumb has lingered too long. You nod. He shrugs. A gesture passed between soldiers. You sleep with it beside your mat. The carved horse and the dried pomegranate pit in your pack. 2 fragments of something ordinary, made sacred by the slowness of time and the nearness of danger. And when sleep takes you that night, it does so gently, without resistance. Because you are tired, but not afraid. Because tonight you have learned that vigilance is not always about preparing for death. Sometimes it's about honouring what lives. The wind shifts again the next morning. This time it carries the scent of something different. Not fire, not ash, but earth. Damp and raw. A storm gathering beyond the distant ridgelines, heavy with rain not yet fallen. You wake with the weight of it in your chest, the pressure of clouds forming somewhere unseen but certain. The camp rises slowly. No alarm, no cries. Just the quiet movement of tired bodies, familiar routines performed without conversation. You roll your mat, wash your hands, sharpen your blade with short, careful strokes against stone. The wood-carved horse sits in your satchel now, its legs worn smooth where your thumb absently traces them each night. Dorian calls for patrol just before first light. The list is shorter than usual. You, Nicandros, and one other, a man named Othis, who walks with a slight limp and never looks anyone directly in the eye. You've spoken to him only once. His voice is soft, his tone flat, as if every word has to be pulled up from a deep place inside him. The 3 of you leave camp at a brisk pace, heading east toward a narrow pass that hadn't been checked in 2 days. The trail is winding and choked with thorny scrub. Your legs sting within minutes. The spear on your back feels heavier than it did yesterday. but no one complains. The silence is practical now, honed into habit. As you move, you listen. Not for voices or steel, but for the language of the land. The flap of birds startled too suddenly. The snapping of a branch where none should bend. The absence of insects in a patch of trees. These are the sounds that speak before men do. By mid-morning, the sky darkens to the colour of worn bronze. The storm is close, and with it, a change. You come upon it just after a bend. A tree, broken and stripped of bark on one side, its wood splintered as if torn by more than wind. Othis stops first, crouching beside the trunk. He brushes aside the leaves, uncovers a mark in the dirt. A boot. Not from your camp. Fresh. Nicandros shifts the spear from his shoulder. You feel your breath slow. No orders are given. You move. Deeper into the ravine, where the path narrows and the stones grow slick with early drops of rain. You advance slowly, each footstep placed with care. The trees lean in above you, crowding the trail, funneling the wind into a low hiss. Then, movement. A flicker of cloth, a shadow darting between trees. Othis raises a hand. All three of you freeze. Your heart hammers once, then stills, clenched tight by instinct. You grip your spear, eyes searching the brush, the rocks, the shifting limbs above. Rain begins to fall, soft, steady. The world grows blurred at the edges. Another shape. Closer this time. Not charging. Watching. Nicandros takes a step forward and shouts. A name? A warning? You don't understand the word, but its echo feels like a stone dropped into a still pool. Silence. Then from the trees a voice. High. Not angry. Not defiant. Scared. You see him now, barely more than a boy, younger than Nicandros, soaked through, a short blade held in trembling hands. Behind him, two more figures emerge, thin, cloaked in ragged cloth. One of them stumbles. The other turns to catch him. Refugees, not scouts, not soldiers. You lower your weapon. Dorian's words return to you. It doesn't always come with noise. Nicandros exhales sharply, tension breaking like a string pulled too tight. Othis moves slowly toward the group, his hands open. You follow, keeping your posture soft, your steps slow. They don't speak your language, but fear is fluent. You offer bread. They hesitate. Then, slowly, the boy lowers the blade. You walk back to camp under the rain, the three strangers trailing behind you like ghosts newly summoned. One coughs with each step. The other limps badly. The boy watches you with wide, hollow eyes, the kind that have seen more than they should. When you arrive, the camp stills. Questions rise, low and pointed. Dorian approaches. You explain, piece by piece. The signs, the encounter, the decision. He listens. Then, without a word, he waves the three strangers toward the fire. He gives them space, dry cloth, water. No speeches, no welcome, only mercy. That night, the rain thickens. Tents sag under its weight. You sit near the edge of the fire, your clothes steaming slightly, your boots heavy with mud. The carved horse rests in your lap, and for the first time you find yourself holding it like something fragile, not as a charm, but as a reminder that the line between stranger and brother is thinner than you once believed. Nicandros sits beside you, arms crossed. They were lucky, he says. You nod. He glances sideways. So are we. And for once, you understand the weight behind those words. Not the kind that brags, but the kind that grieves what didn't happen, yet. You close your eyes, the fire crackles and the rain falls like a lullaby for those who still stand. The storm does not leave by morning. It lingers, long after the clouds should have broken, after the wind should have shifted. The valley wakes to a world soaked and shivering, its colours dulled, its sounds muffled by the constant curtain of rain. The fire smoulders low, too damp to rise fully, its smoke crawling sideways in the wet air. Your body aches in quiet places, knees, lower back, between your shoulder blades. Not from a single wound, but from the soft erosion of days spent sleeping in armour, walking through mud, lifting, bracing, guarding. It's a tiredness that doesn't ask permission. It just arrives and stays. Still, you rise, because everyone does. You help pull the soaked cloaks from where they hang near the fire, wringing them out as best you can. Nicandros curses the weather with a scowl, muttering something about the gods needing better work ethic. Across the camp, Dorian and Othis stand with the commander, voices hushed, heads bowed under a wet hide stretched between poles. The three newcomers sit near the outer ring of the fire. They do not speak. The boy's blade is gone now, confiscated, not cruelly, but with quiet necessity. The younger of the two others, perhaps a brother, perhaps not, has taken ill. His breath rasps softly through his teeth, shallow and irregular. The rain has soaked his bones, and the fire cannot dry what is already buried inside. You watch him from a distance. You don't know his name, but it doesn't matter. His shivering is the kind that doesn't respond to warmth. His eyes barely open. The boy, the one who held the blade, sits behind him, arms wrapped tightly around his shoulders as if he could hold him upright through sheer will. No one tells him to stop. No one offers false hope. Instead, someone brings herbs. Someone else fetches wine. The healer, an older man with a crooked spine and hands like knots, kneels beside the sick boy and places a cloth over his chest, whispering something into the steam rising from the cup he holds. It's not enough, but it's what can be done. Later, Dorian pulls you aside. "We leave tomorrow," he says. You blink. The words are unexpected, even though you've been waiting for them. He continues, "Scouts came in from the west. Roads are safe. The attack was isolated. We return to the city." You nod. He studies your face. You're thinking of the boy. You don't answer, because he's right. He lowers his voice. "We'll bring them with us." A pause. "If they survive the night." You look out across the camp. The boy hasn't moved. The one beside him now lies flat on his back, breath fluttering like a dying moth against the damp cloth. You nod again, not because it changes anything, but because it acknowledges the truth you both see. That night, the rain turns colder. The fire is rebuilt higher, wider, fed with dry wood stored beneath the supply carts. You help carry logs, your fingers numbed and stinging, the leather of your sandals swollen with water. Nicandros works beside you, his usual grin replaced by the same grim focus he wears when sharpening his blade. You sit your watch near the boy and the others. He doesn't look at you, but he knows you're there. His hands are wrapped around the sick one's wrists now, as if anchoring him to this world. Every so often he leans close and says something in a language you don't know. His voice is soft, measured, the way someone speaks to a sleeping child. In the darkest hour of the night, the boy's grip loosens, not by choice. You hear it before you see it, a change in breath, then none at all. The healer knows without rising. He lowers his eyes, murmurs something that might be a prayer, or just a word meant to soften endings. The boy does not cry. He leans forward and rests his head on the other's chest, motionless. You do not interrupt. You do not offer a word, because nothing you say would belong in this moment. Dorian joins you sometime later. He kneels beside the body, pulls the cloak gently over the boy's face, not with ceremony, with silence. "He was already too far gone," he says. You ask, "What about the other?" Dorian looks toward the remaining boy. "We take him." There is no argument. No protest from the commander. At dawn, the rain finally stops. Not gradually, but suddenly. As if the storm, having done its work, simply releases the sky and walks away. The camp moves quickly now. Tents packed, cloaks wrung out and strapped, armor rewrapped in dry cloth. The fire is extinguished, ash scattered. The boy rides with you on one of the carts. He holds nothing in his hands, no pack, no blade, not even the empty blanket left behind. He stares ahead and says nothing. But when you offer him water, he drinks. And when you say his name, softly, not because you know it, but because you've given him one, he turns his head, just slightly, just enough to show that he hears, and that, for now, is enough. The road back to the city is quiet, not peaceful, but calm, like a breath held steady against the weight of everything you now carry. The road winds back through familiar hills, but everything feels different now. The trees haven't changed. The sky is the same wide canvas. The stones still press into the soles of your sandals in the same irregular rhythms. Yet your body moves through this land with a new awareness. Each turn recalls the day you marched toward the outpost. Each shadow holds the echo of something you left behind. The boy rides quietly beside you in the cart. He hasn't spoken since the valley. His eyes stay on the horizon, his shoulders drawn in tight beneath the borrowed cloak. You walk beside him when you can, occasionally glancing up to check that he's still breathing, that his hands haven't drifted too far into stillness. When he sleeps, it's shallow and uneven, like a rhythm waiting to be broken. Dorian walks ahead as always, his pace steady, unreadable. Nicandros remains close. He hasn't said much either. He spends long stretches humming tunelessly to himself or adjusting the wrappings on his spear for the 10th time in an hour. He's restless. Not in his body. He moves like a soldier now, but in his mind. You recognize it. You feel it too, the strange weight of returning. It takes 2 days to reach the city's edge. When the walls come into view, rising out of the earth like old memory, something tightens in your chest. You hadn't realized how much you'd changed until the city returned to frame it. The gates, once imposing, now look small, the towers less grand, the buildings less tall. You walk through the familiar arch, and it's not the city that's shifted, it's you. Inside, life hums on. Merchants call out beneath dyed cloth canopies, potters stack their wares in delicate towers, children run between sandals and carts, laughing, shoving, scattering pebbles. The city has not paused. It has not missed you. It has simply continued. That realization cuts deeper than you expect. But Dorian shows no sign of hesitation. He moves through the streets like a current, and the group follows. You pass the agora, the temple steps, the bathhouses perfumed faintly with smoke and oil. At one point, you spot the old man who once taught you the first letters of this world. He sits outside a shaded colonnade, writing on a wax tablet. He doesn't see you, but you see him, and for a moment you feel like 2 different lives have passed each other in the street. The boy remains silent. When the group disbands, Dorian gives quick instructions to the others. The gear is returned, the names accounted for, the mission considered complete. The camp dissolves into the city, as all things eventually do. Some go back to workshops, some to fields, some to houses filled with stories they will not tell. You do not ask where Dorian goes when he disappears down an alley. You trust that you will see him again. You take the boy to the woman's house. Your house. She opens the door without surprise. She does not ask questions. She only steps aside to let you both in. Inside, it is exactly as you left it. The oil lamp near the hearth, the smell of thyme and ash in the walls, the bowl placed near the mat. The same bowl, the same corner, the same mat. And yet now it feels like a monument. You gesture for the boy to sit. He does. The woman watches you, her eyes sharp. Then she goes to the basin and begins to heat water. Later she returns with food. Bread, lentils, a fig cut in half. She sets the bowl before him gently. When he doesn't reach for it, she sits beside him and begins eating her own, slowly, deliberately, not looking at him. And eventually the boy mimics her, 1 bite at a time. You sit nearby, saying nothing. You feel something return to the room, not quite peace, but rhythm. That night you do not lie on your mat. You remain seated, watching the fire burn low, the smoke curling toward the ceiling in thin, fading ribbons. The boy sleeps, curled into the corner like a thread woven carefully into a larger cloth. You think of the carved horse in your satchel. You do not take it out. Not yet. You close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the city. Dogs barking in the distance, sandals on stone, the faint murmur of a lyre played far away. You are home, but it is not the same home, and you are not the same you. In the quiet that follows, you realize something. You are no longer surviving ancient Greece. You are living in it. The city breathes. It does not celebrate your return, nor mark it. There are no trumpets, no garlands strung across stone colonnades, but it breathes, and you now breathe with it. The days begin again, not in ceremony, but in the slow, habitual rhythm of survival. The fire is built each morning, the water fetched, the bread made. The woman does not speak more than she used to, but her actions carry a subtle precision now, a quiet knowing. When she kneads the dough, she does so with the same care she once reserved for you. Now it includes the boy. He has not spoken, not once in 5 days, but his silence is not heavy. It is cautious, intentional. His eyes follow every sound, every movement. He eats slowly, always finishing. He sits near the fire, but never too close. At night, he sleeps in the same curled posture, one hand beneath his chin, the other near his ribs, as if holding something that isn't there. You have not asked his name, and he has not offered one. Names come later in this world. First comes presence, then labour, then trust. On the 6th day, Dorian visits. He arrives as the sun rises, his cloak darker than the dust it collects, his step the same, deliberate even. The woman sees him at the threshold and nods once, then disappears into the back room. You step outside with him, the stone beneath your feet still cool from night. Neither of you speak at first. Then Dorian says, "They found the men who did it." You know what he means. You do not ask how. He continues, "A band, mercenaries from the coast, not local, not known." You ask, "What happened?" He looks out toward the horizon, where the rooftops blur into rising light. They won't do it again. There is no satisfaction in his tone, no vengeance, just the completion of something. You stand there with him in silence for a time, listening to the soft murmur of the market awakening, the click of sandals against stone, the distant bray of a donkey. The city does not care for justice, it cares for balance. Dorian reaches into his pouch and pulls out a small wrapped item. He places it in your hand. You unwrap it slowly. It's a strip of fabric dyed deep red, frayed at the edges. A thread. You look at him. "From your wrist," he says. "It was left at the camp." You take it without speaking. You hadn't realized it had fallen. But now that it's back in your hand, you feel its weight in a new way. Not as a charm, but as a story. You return inside to find the boy crouched by the hearth, watching the woman grind dried herbs with a stone pestle. He doesn't speak to her, but he hands her a pinch of salt when she reaches for it. She does not thank him, but she uses it. That night the boy places a smooth stone near your mat. He does not explain it. He does not need to. It is not a gift exactly. It is a sign that he sees you, that he is beginning to stay. On the 7th day, he begins to follow you when you go to the workshop. You return to the place where your hands first learned how to stitch and bind and cut. The tools are all familiar, but your place there is not what it was. Dorian no longer teaches you. You work beside him. Others greet you with nods, not questions. You're asked to measure a frame, to inspect a thread, to tie a strap around a wooden core. You belong now. In the quietest, most important way. The boy watches. At first from the doorway, then closer, then beside your bench. You hand him the wood-carved horse, his fingers close around it slowly. He does not smile, but he does not let it go. Spring comes early that year. The first green shoots press up between cobblestones where the city has forgotten to stamp them out. The rain's slow. The sun lingers longer. At the temple, the priests prepare offerings for renewal. At the gymnasium, boys race with polished shields and painted faces. Women sing again in courtyards, laughter returns to alleys, and life moves forward. Not with great leaps, but in quiet turns. You stand at the top of a hill one evening, where the wind touches the olive trees and the city unfolds below in amber light. The boy stands beside you, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the sea far beyond the walls. He speaks. Just one word, a name. His name. It's not one you know, but it fits him. It fits the world. You say it back to him. He nods. Nothing else is needed. You walk home together, not hurried. There is time now, time to build, to mend, to rest, to remember. And as the city exhales below, you feel it, quiet and certain. You have lasted more than a day in ancient Greece, and without meaning to, you have become part of it.